Welcome to Warcraft Reloaded episode 28, a podcast brought to you by Mash Those Buttons, covering World of Warcraft Classic and its community. I am Bobby, also known as Blazin' Bob. Unfortunately, we have no Mel this week. She was out of town this week and is currently driving back. But we do have Yip, a.k.a. Cognitive Pit. What's going on?
Not too much. I guess we can see clearly who's more dedicated to the podcast. I mean, work. Quit your job, Mel, if you care about World of Warcraft.
Well, to be fair, she did hook up her laptop and play Scuffed in the hotel room last night for what you guys will find out about our progression later on in the episode. But we are also joined by two very special guests. Returning for a second week in a row is Melderon. How you doing?
Good. I don't want to be, take the place of your wife, but my name starts with MEL, so maybe I could somehow fill in again.
Well, it was great because when we first recorded, we were calling Mel, and you kept answering, and we were like, oh, yeah, we were both Mel, I guess. I didn't even think about that.
Hey, love you, Mel. Oh, thank you. Love you too, Bob.
Oh, we have gotten quite close. But we're also joined by Defcamp. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Doing really good. Glad to be here, guys.
Awesome. And Defcamp normally does a cool thing on Good Morning Azeroth, and I wanted to let him do it here because he has a brand new mic. So
yes,
you might want to hold your ears. Just turn it down for a second, possibly, but let's go ahead. Give it to us.
We'll do it. Good morning, Warcraft Reloaded.
Nice.
Episode 28.
Nice. And you didn't peek out.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
I like how Bob says he's letting you do it on here as if we're not the ones profiting off that.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, we've got a jam-packed episode today. Most of it is going to be centered around TBC. So if you're looking for straight classic, this might not be the one that you're wanting, but it's going to be a lot of TBC talk and a lot of like what's coming in TBC. So,
and who doesn't want that, right?
Yeah. So first off, let's just go it like real quick. We have some housekeeping. What we did this week in World of Warcraft. Then there is a little bit of news, and then we're going to move on to the TBC discussion. So, Yip, why don't you take it away?
All right. So we had two new reviews this week. The first one is from As Gunther, Vanilla Energy. This crew have a vibrant mix of game knowledge that you'd associate with hardcore players on a raid team. Still in max progression. You're about to find out that might not be quite the case. But also, they explore many facets of the game and offer a positive, vicarious experience to anybody interested in joining in the journey. Thank you so much for that review. And then we have another one from Glacial Edge, like hanging out in Discord with the crew. Been listening to the podcast since it started. Still very much enjoy it. Always feels like a group of people I could easily be hanging out with in the Discord, in the guild Discord. They play the game the way I do, so the content is always relevant to me. Thanks, and thank you for that review as well, too. And I always like the reviews that say they can live vicariously through us, or they get the raiding experience they couldn't enjoy. I do like that, and I'm glad that's why we kind of go through our trials and tribulations through Naxx, and that's been a fun thing to cover every week.
That's really
good
nice.
Reviews.
Yeah.
So finally, I'm starting my apology tour. We got we got an email in. So first, clearly not experts. We got an email that said, Pitt explained it wrong. The Wrath can target anyone that isn't casting at max range. Heroes in range DPS should all max range on Zeliek, so they don't get targeted by the chain. They can stand on top of each other if you want. They won't be targeted. Just leave an alley for tanks to run in safely. The Wrath doesn't just always target the tank, like Pitt said. So I didn't go back and listen. So if everyone's at max range, it should only be targeting the tank, is probably what I meant.
Yeah, I listened, and it sounded like that's what you meant, but you might not have.
I'm sure I said it in a weird way. I remember being beyond exhausted, so I'm sure I said it in a weird way. However, the thing I did say, and that I'm kind of looking back through and kind of reanalyzing our strategy, I was under the impression that most healers' range is actually less than 40 yards, so they couldn't max range the bolt. But is that not the case? Can healers actually max range?
Healers should be able to max range. The only class that we actually put by themselves are warlocks because they have a shorter range.
Yeah.
I think we've been having our healers stand in between the range and the like tank, still 11 yards away and then spread. But yeah, I guess we were just wrong. They can also just be max range with the with, like the mages and stuff.
Yeah,
do you guys like put images in your show notes or anything like that? Because I can send you guys an image that helps.
Yeah, we can put an image in the show notes, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We have a whole.
I'll find it. Eventually.
We have a whole like.
And if not, we can always put the link to the image too.
Yeah,
right.
I'll send you two. One that someone made and one that I made. I don't know which one's better, but
yeah, we're really lucky in our guild. We have like every boss fight kind of mapped out. We have like a guild sheet, so it's everything as far as healing assignments, where to stand on certain fights, and like what to do.
We typically have a problem where we just whatever ends up kind of working, we're just gonna roll with that for a while until we like have to change. But I think we are kind of at the have to change point because we are losing healers every 4 horsemen. Even we had our cleanest 4 horsemen last night. Still lose like 6 people and like 4 of them end up being healers, which is a bummer. Just the way that we're doing it.
Are they dying from the Holy Wrath, or?
I think they are. Yeah, I think they are. Or they're ending up taking like too many ticks, just because like we get absolutely lost for some reason. So whether we nuke down Thane or we just do like the normal strat and we kill Thane and Mograine first, and then the other 2 slowly. Once there's only 2 up, like Blamau, I don't know how you Blamau and Zeliek. Everyone is just sort of like, we don't know what to do. We're just sort of winging it from here.
Yeah.
Like we have an idea, but it's just like everyone's sitting in safe zone and the tanks are just calling who's going to come in. And the healers are like, I don't know, I can come in next. And it's so awkward.
I think it's important to keep like your cool, especially towards the end there. So what I do, we have obviously for, 4 different sets of healers, right? For starting off at each boss. So I'm in charge of the red healers, right? So we have red.
There's 3 sets, not 4.
There's 3 sets. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's red, blue, and green. So we have 12 healers total, 4 healers in each set. And what I do is, I know that I move on the first mark and then every 3 after that, right? So what I do is when it's our turn to move for the red, I say, okay, red move, right? So then all the red healers know to move. And then someone in charge of blue does blue, someone in charge of green does green. So they know even till the very end of the fight when they're supposed to be moving, so they don't end up taking more stacks than they need to. And I think that's something, they shouldn't need to rely on us for that, but sometimes it's just nice to have someone calling stuff out.
Yeah, that's how we started doing it. We had just had one person every mark. He'd be like red, green, blue, red, green, blue. But the comms ended up being so crowded that everything else was sort of falling apart while someone was just like yelling red, green, blue. And then like if he wasn't paying it, if he like messed up the order, everyone was like, what? So we sort of went back to just being like, listen, every 3 marks you move. So that first rotation is people are staggered, and then every 3 marks you move. And that's been working out well. I just think once there's only 2 and you have to spend like 6 marks in the safe zone, it just becomes like very weird. It's easier when they're all up that you know to move every 3, but when they're not all up, it becomes a little cloudy. So maybe we do go back to using that other way.
You guys know the card that yells at you when you can actually set it to your rotation.
We do have that. I actually got that for everybody, and
so the healers that really helps with that.
Some of the healers know how to change it. Some of them don't, I don't think, but it definitely helps. Just, they can even just do the math and be like, if I'm on 1, then that means I'm on 4, then I'm on 7. Like it's harder than I'm on 10.
Yeah.
But
I'll send that link over too, just in case. But yeah.
That's the exact one.
There it is, yeah. Which is really interesting about this fight. The way that I see it is like it is a way kind of in preparation for TBC, right? Because you do have a lot more personal responsibility, in this fight. And it's one of those fights where you kind of see the progress. Like you really see the progress of raiding, in Nax for Blizzard and how they changed a lot of, things and kind of, the old, fire on the floor and threat is the main mechanic kind of thing is kind of, starting to go out the window, and there's a little bit more, sprinkling of mechanics here and there. But, in TBC, I hope people are ready to, at least when I remember, especially before, like pre-nerf and all that kind of stuff, because I rated every tier in TBC, there's going to be a lot of wiping and a lot of consumable usage. And I just hope people are ready for that and they don't expect it to be like a classic kind of thing where you go in there and you just kind of run through the whole raid in an hour. And so it's.
I mean,
it's,
Classic. To be fair, Classic might have been like that for a lot of guilds had there not been
Mhm.
world buffed and had there been true itemization from the early days of Classic when Molten Core first came out, because just the items was what made it a lot harder, and no one used world buffs. So
even still though, the mechanics are still very like, I mean, it's like they all
Definitely.
kind of feel like patchwork. Like, I'm just here DPSing, or I'm just here healing. I don't have to do anything else. We either kill it or we don't kill it. Like, there's
back
no.
in my day,
you
we
know.
called those tank and spanks.
I mean, yeah, there's just so many of those. Like, the boss might do, like, like if you think about like Broodlord, which like some guilds struggled with when BWL came out because like the tank would die. It's not really like a mechanics thing. Like, oh, we didn't move it to this point. It's just, I just died. Like, just
Well,
mortal strikes and died.
Let's move into what have we been doing this week in WoW, and I'll let Defcamp and Melderon go first. I'm sure it's been mostly Naxx stuff. Did you guys complete any goals that you had set for this week?
So it was really interesting because we've been trying to get Naxx down to one night, and we were on pace for it. So we're trying to get down to one night so that we can have Thursday just for AQ 40, because we're trying to get people geared up. What actually ended up happening this week is we had a little bit of a mistake during our Four Horsemen. Yes, we had a mistake during Four Horsemen.
Someone pulled it.
We're all, everything is on pace. We're doing great, and someone walks in and pulls it, and there was everyone wasn't ready, so we ended up wiping.
That aggro radius is no joke.
Yeah, but we made the decision to. Luckily, there was a Ani and Ren that was about to drop within the next 5 minutes, so we made the decision. Hey, let's go ahead. Get these buffs. Some people were saying, no, let's just keep going without world buffs. But we ended up, only spending about 20 minutes or so getting the buffs and coming back. And we actually, within that night, got all the way to KT. Yeah, so we got all the way. We destroyed, everything, one shot everything, and then got to KT. We gave KT one attempt, but
it was like 5 of our raid time, and
it was
what I would have never expected, because we expected the whole thing done, right? Mm-hmm. And then like Def just said, and I was like, okay, well that's not going to happen. We'll have Seth and KT for the second night, just like every other week we've done this so far.
Yeah.
And then we down Seth, and I'm like, okay, well we actually made progress even though we wiped on 4 horsemen.
Yep, that is definitely a thing.
Yeah, and we actually we usually don't wipe on KT, but I think we had it was very unlucky. The melee were just not placed well, so a lot of the
entire melee got ice blocked.
The entire melee got ice blocked, and with the melee not having the stam world buffs and stuff like that, they die pretty quickly, right? So, but we went back in there the next night, cleared that easily, and then cleared AQ, and then Melderon, if you want to talk about our TBC announcement that we made this week,
we just announced to the guild that we're planning on continuing, and let us know what you want to play. Give your top 3 picks. And obviously we said we're only going to do one raid ID, so we gotta hopefully it fits into what we can do. We can't take everyone, unfortunately. I wish we could, but
we made the decision that we're not gonna we want to kind of be the same kind of guild that we are now, not like super hardcore, but we are going to go to three raid nights a week for TBC instead of 2. But we're not going to push for everyone to be a leatherworking. I mean, we're still kind of thinking about this, because we don't want everyone to feel like they have to be a leatherworker for drums. We're hoping that the big pumpers, the DPS, want to do that already, and we have a good amount of people with drums, stuff like that. But I think we're looking to be a little bit more. We're about the same, not casual, but go in there, get stuff done, and then have fun the rest of the nights, kind of thing.
I'm still holding my breath, hoping that they put the thing in for the drums to where it's the cooldown or whatever it is that they put
tinnitus,
in right before Wrath. I'm still kind of holding my breath that they do that, because I'm going to go leatherworking on my Warlock if they don't, and I don't want to go leatherworking on my Warlock. I've got a whole bunch of leather in the bank on an alt ready to work everything up, but I'd love to just get the news and then just sell it all.
Yeah.
But
that's kind of the thing. So we're also banking on the same thing. I hope they just nerf it, because it'll, it's just not good. It was hindsight that I don't think they realized, and just like world buffs, no one thought that people would stack them. It wasn't designed that way. Even Kevin Jordan said this, like none of them intended for it to be that way. And I think it's the same thing with drums. And they didn't really going to be like this. So, in my opinion, if they kind of didn't make those changes with world buffs, now's their time to kind of, think and say, this is going to be exhausting meta that will just make people unhappy. Let's just get rid of it. So
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see if they do that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like it's not needed, right? Like you don't need drums. Like okay, Sunwell is a little bit of a different story, and maybe we can reevaluate that in Sunwell for some guilds that might need that extra push. But you don't need every player in your raid to have drums. You know what I mean? And I think naturally, the people who want to do really good damage and want to push are probably going to go ahead and get it. So like, let those people who want to do it go get it, but don't force it on everyone. And it kind of does force it on everyone in a way. You know what I mean? Like just like that whole world buff. Melderon calls it the world buff
Effect.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Josh on the panel when we did the Con Before the Storm panel said, "You're not forced to do that. I'm not going to do that." But that's just not the type. Like he's not a big raider, though. You know what I mean?
Right.
So of course, yeah. If I wasn't a big raider, I wouldn't care. But when I go to my raid and everybody else has world buffs or everybody else has drums, I'm going to feel like the asshole if I'm the one that doesn't have it.
Yeah.
I mean, like right now with world buffs, you don't need to bring them to Naxx, but you're not gonna do very well. Like it just feels like we went from having like some of our DPS usually bringing world buffs to just healers, just everyone's bringing world buffs now, pretty much. And it's just we don't even ask people to do it; they just all do it because they know we're trying to get everything down.
Yeah, and there are guilds out there who will say like it's gonna weigh on your if it's a loot council guild, they're gonna say like, listen, it's gonna weigh on our loot decisions. And the same thing could go for drums, right? So someone could say, well, I'm just going to join a guild that doesn't have that, effect. Well, first of all, okay, that's fine. But then you're probably going to be joining a guild that is subpar in some ways, and isn't clearing things like you may want them to be clearing.
Yeah. And even if it starts off that way, it's the drum effect will happen, right? So someone will get drums. They'll outparse the people who don't. Then everyone will start getting drums. It's the same thing, right?
Dude, it was
that little bit of, and we talked about this last time, right? Someone in chat said it was like a 5% increase, or this may be on Josh's thing.
10%,
and that seems small. No. The actual overall DPS increase.
Right.
I think that wasn't that North on Josh's last episode?
It was right, and then but then like we were, and Josh was like, "Oh, that's not really a big deal," and you and me were like, "No, that is. People will go for that 5%. Like, like they will 100%."
Yeah. Well, and it happened to me. I started out going to raids, not getting any buffs. Then I started to be like, okay, well, I'll get Ani. I started getting Ani. Then I started getting Songflower and Ani. Then ZG came out, and I started getting ZG and Ani. And then I, for months now, have come with DM, Ani, and ZG every time.
Yeah.
Like
in phase 1, we had this amazing rogue in our guild who was always like ping parsing. He's just amazing. And I talked to him a few times, and I realized it's because he just min-maxes everything like that. Like he went through like multiple different gear setups with me. He's like, well, this will increase DPS by 1.5, like full on DPS, which is like a tiny percentage. Wow. And it's just like he was really into it. And when you're talking about something that is 5%, that's way more than what some people are willing to do for a tiny increase. That's like,
was that XYC?
XCTU, yeah.
XCTU, yep. Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm still working on that script, Bob. But I put like that. What I told you about making that world buff video. Because like we were talking about this last time, and world buffs may be a problem, 100%. But I think Naxx is the only raid where I can finally say, okay, now I understand why back in the day people started to figure them out. Because Naxx, the fights are completely different depending on whether you have world buffs or not. 100% different.
Night and day. Yeah. Well, let me know if you need any help or anything from me on that side.
We'll do 100%. Yeah, I would have had it out sooner, but Defcamp knows I've been working on this monster guide, and it's finally done. So now I can move on to some other stuff. Yeah. So
the guide made me kind of want to play a shaman, but I don't want to be a space goat. So
that's the effect. Yeah,
I might have to start an alt shaman on y'all's server and go a little zug.
That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make a Draenei Draenei. People make fun of me for saying it wrong.
Cry, Crystal.
On your server, Bob and Pitt. I would like to play with you guys a little bit, so maybe I'll make it your
I
guild.
can't wait for TBC
Nice.
because you're not the only person who says like there's so many ways that people say Drawneye, Drawny, Dronay.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be such a mixed bag. I can't wait.
That's why I say Space Goat. Boom. Done.
Yeah.
Like everybody knows what I'm talking about. But let's.
I already can't handle Shaman and Shaman, but we'll just.
Yeah, same.
I like the Seathon. It's Cthulhu.
That is Bob. We went into AQ, and Bob just like, let's go kill Seathon, and I was like, no.
And then he goes, Bob, that's not how they say it. I was like, oh, it's Cthulhu. I was like, I remember her stone now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So what did you guys do this week?
Yeah,
All right,
so
well,
let's link it right into progress. Let's just link it into progress.
Hold on. I worked on my rogue, and he's got 2 awesome little swords. And we had a new listener join our guild. He sent me 2 level 13 swords, and he told me podcaster privilege. That cracked me up. But yeah, jump into our Naxx talk.
Yeah, so I guess if he's gonna talk about his rogue, I'll talk about. I guess recruiting is the only thing I do outside.
You
of
killed
raid.
it this week.
I walked to So we actually got 2 new healers, so we're up to like 14 healers now when everyone shows up, which is not. Thankfully, we got those 2 healers, or we would have been running like 9 healers this week because we've had so many healer absences lately. That it's just been like we're very glad we got those 2 people. But I was on the Stormwind bank steps, like running into my bank, and I see this like Grand Marshal geared warrior without a guild as I run by, and I like back up. He's got like Gauntlets of Annihilation on. He's got GM stuff on. I'm just like, you want a raiding guild? And he's like, all right. And it's like, yeah, I love moments like that. That's why we have a rogue in our guild the same way. Like 2nd week of AQ or 3rd week of AQ, I'm like running by the auction house and I see a rogue wearing Death Sting. And I'm like, what? And he doesn't have a guild. Like, how does a Death Sting rogue not have a guild the 3rd week of AQ? And just yoinked him up. And that's my I get most of my recruits. Yeah.
You Alliance are so unprofessional.
I just find these people on the streets.
Yeah, we require resumes, okay? Like,
Dude, I don't
No,
even see people when I'm walking by. Like people be trying to say something to me in /S, and I'll be like, it'll take them forever to actually get my attention. I'm like, oh, what's up?
Yeah,
I've trained myself to just see when people are guildless. I'm just like, what are they wearing? What level are they?
My text window is so reduced that I miss so much stuff, dude. It's ridiculous.
I can't read Raider
chat.
That's
Guild chat and Raider chat. I guarantee you I miss 70% of everything said in both of those, especially during raid.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so back to Naxx. We did our normal progression on Tuesday, so we were 12 of 15. We had 4 horsemen Saffron.
Well, hold on,
and
though.
KT up.
Come on, Yep. You got to start with what.
You always want to talk
one.
about Tuesday. What happened on Tuesday? What's
the way we started out Tuesday with Patch?
Oh,
yeah.
So
That's a good idea to talk about it, right?
Okay,
because that was like oh my god,
out of my memory. Because I thought for once we've never wiped on Patchwork before. We've never had a problem on him, and I thought finally it was going to happen. Because again, like I said, we had 2 main healers down. We had 2 new healers, so I think things got maybe confused about who was healing who. We pull Patchwork, and the main tank just gets destroyed. He gets hit, and then he gets Hateful Strike, and is dead. So now there's 3 of us, and we're like, oh my god, what's going on?
And Melee's just standing out there with all their world buffs, just like, oh my god.
Melee's just like, we're like, Melee, get the hell out of here.
Save yourself.
Then another tank goes down, which is pretty nuts. And at the same time, our main tank gets rezzed. I think he actually dies again, but then our other tank that died got rezzed also. So now we're still at 3. We end up kind of stabilizing with those 3 tanks after like 30 seconds to a minute. The melee move in, and we 3 tank Patchwork with no DPS deaths, which was awesome. And with like the worst start
sweating so hard. I like walked into the goo. I don't normally do that, but I was like, I'm walking in the goo. And then I come back out, and I'm just barely going, and like our GM IDDQD had gotten rend and was so excited about testing his damage on Patchwork, and like we didn't even get to move in for a good 40-45 seconds after the fight started.
I had like a prophetic vision when I saw the main tank die. I was like, this is where our guild dies. Like we're gonna wipe on patchwork. We're not gonna be able to make any progress this week, and this is how it begins because we're already we had 2 weeks where we couldn't kill Saffron. So like I'm thinking like if we don't even get to Saffron this week, we're like I don't even know. People are not going to be that happy.
That's really impressive.
Well,
it was awesome.
Really impressive.
So then our whole goal was to try and get 13 down in this first night so we could just come fully buffed for Saffron. And we're running late. We decided we're about 10 minutes over when we get to 4 horse, and we're like, well, we'll try one shot at the four horsemen, and then guess who f's it up?
You?
Yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't sure what he was gonna say.
So
it was a mixture.
Well,
it wasn't,
okay, but I'm gonna explain it though, because like I found out that it actually wasn't, because I found a tool that I never knew. Probably a lot of you have. Probably gonna make fun of me, but so what happened was I pull Lady B first every time, and
I like that.
we had a lock put a dot on Lady B, so I taunted, and I thought I had done some other moves, which would have like just getting one bloodthirst or one heroic strike or one revenge off would have been enough to like stop that dot, but I didn't. It pulled over to what's his name? Thane. So it pulled over to Thane. I pulled him back, but it gave all the healers over there stacks, so they couldn't rotate to me. And so it just basically destroyed the whole thing. So I'm trying to figure out what I did wrong so I wouldn't mess it up on Thursday. Corpse shows me, like, I've been using Warcraft logs this entire time, but he shows me the replay button.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't have the replay.
You never knew the replay existed?
I didn't, and I'm like,
that's cool to figuring out why. Especially 4 horsemen.
Yeah, this is the coolest thing ever. So
it's awesome, dude.
What I found out that I screwed up is I got my taunt off. I got one white hit off, but you know how tanks have to do the whole side to side backing up so that you're always moving, but you're always blocking and still able to white hit and do moves.
Yeah.
You on those replays, you can see your cone of vision, and you see me just barely not making it back to where I'm on the side of him. So none of my moves that I was hitting were actually hitting. Right. So on Thursday night, I definitely fixed that. But I thought it was the craziest thing because I had never seen this replay button, and I was like watching all the fights, and like I was just geeking out on this thing. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever.
That's why I could confidently blame our healers on our first few 4 horsemen wipes. I was like, I can see there's 0 healers in this corner. Like,
and then it's really important, I think, to like, because like especially if you have someone who's streaming, right, you can't see everything. But I think it's a really good, useful tool too, as well, for like if you're. What I used to do a lot, like when we're getting on staff, another healer, Gordy, would show me like logs of the guilds that were like clearing it really well, and we would just watch and see what they were doing, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. But I think 4 horsemen is like one of those fights where like that pull, we've had that pull go wrong a lot, you know what I mean, and it's so, first of all, the DPS should probably not be doing anything at that point, right?
True. But I mean, one dot, I could have easily taken it. It's probably, I'm sure they won't do it again unless we've got a like crazy farm. But like, it's something I should be able to recover from, and that's what, that's what I talked with Yip about.
Yeah, it's not your fault that he dotted, but like you can't undot it. You can only do
your job better. That's what I love about the 4 horse. You guys were talking about it earlier. I forgot to interject, but I love the 4 horse because it forces everybody to just pay attention to them and do their job and not worry about other people. You have to trust in your team, and I think that's just the coolest thing.
Yeah. We were saying earlier before the show started how like the level of personal responsibility really ramps up in Naxx, and especially with 4 horsemen, and you do definitely see a lot of that more in TBC. But you have to make sure, you have to know that people are moving on the right mark, and that people aren't leaving a healer or a tank without a healer because they messed up on their movement and stuff like that, or gets someone's standing on the wrong place and gets holy wrath, and it's just. There's so many levels of that personal responsibility because you have the whole raid split up in 4 corners essentially, and it's like it's really cool. But Yeah, I love that fight. I gotta say though, I think Patchwork, like as a healer, and I'm really interested on like what it's like for the Alliance for Patchwork, because I feel like you guys maybe, because like I was thinking about like, what happened with you guys. If that happened to us, would we be able to recover in that same kind of way? And we have had issues where like a tank would die and then the melee just start dropping. But the fact that you guys have Paladins, I think just is so good for Patchwork. And if the fight,
definitely.
does end up lasting longer, because I'm pretty much at the end of every Patchwork, and I always try to be. I always try to be by the end of each fight. You know what I mean? And like, because if you're not using all your mana, like I like to try to push how much I can do this and the other. But as a priest, right? Like, I just sit there spamming, like heal rank 2. And mix in some other heals in there, but Paladin, they just go nonstop, man. And
Well,
it's like,
I really
Paladins
think
having infinite mana and then also their buffs make Patchwork a lot easier for sure.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that we're
the biggest thing with Paladins, there's a lot to Paladins, but I think the biggest thing is Kings. And what people oftentimes don't think about is Kings is giving you 10% more stats on top of world buff. So you're already getting 15% more on ZG. You're getting more stats with Ani. Like, it's nuts how much it's actually pumping you up, giving you more health, giving you more mana, giving you more of everything. And so, but why don't we move on to our day 2? I just really wanted to talk about that patch part because that was hilarious.
Yeah. Last thing on patch 2, though, real quick. I don't know how many tanks are doing this, but 2 of us have like really insane avoidance. So even though when we say like no DPS died, sometimes I didn't check this week, but we've had this situation before. We get on to 3 where it's like, oh, like 3 or 4 DPS should have died, but we're at like 55% avoidance. So we just lucked out in the hateful mist.
Jeez,
and then that like that helps.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so day 2, we have our 4 horsemen first. We nuke Thane, which I was kind of against nuking Thane because last time we failed. And I was like, I'd rather just do it because we've killed 4 horsemen with the non-Thane nuke with 0 world buffs. So I'm thinking like all of us world buff, the regular strategy will just go really well because we've done it with no world buffs. But we end up nuking Thane. It was very close to getting another stack that was going to kill us all. So it was pretty close, even though we were at 39 when we pulled. So that was close. That went well though. It was our best 4 horsemen yet. So I think we had 6 people die. Normally we're at like half a raid at the end of 4 horsemen. It's only our 3rd kill though, so I'm pretty happy with how we kind of been progressing on it. End up getting a corrupted Ashbringer, which is sick. I didn't get it, but somebody spent. Let me think here. Over slightly over 4 weeks.
47.
Yeah, 47. So slightly over 4 weeks of DKP.
Oh my god!
The corrupted Ashbringer. I went pretty hard on it, but I didn't go that hard on it. I really wanted it, but I couldn't do that.
I went 10 because it's all I had.
I went, so we get 12 a week, and then there's a DK, so 47 is slightly more than 4 weeks. I went 35. I thought for sure I was winning it with 35, but 47 got it. That's fine.
So is it even like good at all? Like
no.
Sword it's not either. So I didn't know if it was
it'd be okay for leveling in TBC. It's good. It's actually good right now in PvP because sword spec is the best spec in vanilla.
It's got negative stam on it.
I know.
Yeah, but it's only 25 with the gear we have at the moment. Like
250 hit points,
and it steals life too. Like I mean,
that's true.
It's pretty good with the double hit Mortal Strike. But the problem is moving into TBC. If you're wanting to do PvP, Mace. Arms Mace is the way to go,
dude. If you get the Might of Menethil, it's like
that's really what I'm saving for. I don't want to say it out loud, but
you just did.
I'm all inning. I'm all inning Might of Menethil. I'm putting it out there. So that's why I didn't go too hard on.
We've been really lucky with loot. We've gotten our 2nd corrupted Ashbringer, but believe it or not, every week we either get a Gressel or a Thundering or the Hungering Cold, and we've gotten I think 4.
Maces,
healing 4
maces.
of the healing maces so far.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm up for the next one. I'm up for the next
we got
healing
3
mace.
Hungering Colds, 2 Gressels, and 3 healing maces. I think.
See, that just makes everything else so much easier too. Having people.
Yeah, we've been pretty lucky. This last week we ended up getting like 3 weapons. We got, I think on the same night we got Widow's Remorse, Iblis or whatever, and then we got one something else as well too. I thought the dagger from Max all on the same night, which
Oh,
was pretty
yeah.
good for us. We're
Yeah.
pretty happy with that. Hopefully we have that KT luck when we. Well, let me move on. So we go to
Yeah.
Saffron, and I mean we one shot Saffron. I mean we just did it the same way we've sort of talked about before in the past.
Yeah.
We split up on two sides and fully buffed or mostly buffed. We had 6 people who were mainly healers, which is kind of worrisome. And we didn't bring as many healers as we wanted. We were supposed to be at 14. We're at 13, thankfully. So Bob said earlier, I think that Mel locked top in a hotel in order to heal for us that night, which was very useful. An extra priest is very needed on Saffron. Yeah, so that was really huge for us because the other person who was missing was also a priest. I thought we were going to be down 2 priests, and I was kind of worried about what we're going to do. But it ended up being like actually really easy. We had a couple people die after the kill because the blizzard was still up.
Yeah, and
so
they were looking at the loot. They're looking at the loot and died
like right
the
on the body.
Oh, I love that.
And I learned a hard lesson. This is the first time ever I had so many buffs that I wiped my world buffs during Saffron.
Yes, happens a lot to us on the Horde. Yeah,
I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to, because I looked at it. I had arcane intellect, which I don't need. I had the spirit buff, which I don't need. I had all these buffs that I don't need. So some of the guys gave me a macro. If any listeners want to tell me a good add-on that'll do it even better than a macro connected to my bloodthirst that just drops off buffs that I know I'm never going to need, like, would be appreciated, but I don't want to lose my buffs next week.
I don't think there's anything better than a macro or spotting.
Also, I'm to tell your priests and mages, they single target the healers in melee groups, so they don't buff the whole group.
Yes, so like for my I buff groups 1 and 2.
They only give us 30-minute buff.
I never give the 1 hour spirit buff to the tank group. Also, like I'm really vocal with our tank Navic. Like when I'll say, okay, like on this, because I don't hot him unless it's a certain fight. Like my Exna, Saf. Other than that, like we don't hot our tanks if they have full buffs, right? Because you got to think, they're getting illumination, procs. They're getting, procs of, like a Wind Fury, their weapons. They might get one of the shamans might be using their what's the name? Or their trinket.
The undead trinket actually adds a buff for you to get Scourge Stones.
Right, and yeah, exactly, and the one from AQ Melderon that you guys use, Scatter Brooch, right, stuff like that. So you have to always make sure that your tanks are not at buff cap, and that we accidentally have pushed off buffs before, and it's the tanks get very angry when that happens.
What sucks is that it pushes off the first buff you applied. So someone did point out to me I could Mongoose, Juju, and food buff before getting my buffs, and then as long as I keep those active, they will get pushed off first. But I mean, that's expensive too,
Yeah, it's still a bad situation either way. It happens a lot more to tanks. So Bob was DPSing. I think that was a big shock to his system that happened.
Yeah,
that's why it was the first time. Our first patchwork, though.
I was like, wait a second, is there a guard? Is Saffron like guard? Where's all my buffs?
Yeah, where'd my buffs go?
Yeah.
I had a big problem on our first patchwork. So I did 2 things really wrong. One, I wasn't in my patchwork set. Just was nervous and forgot to do it. So I was in my normal tank set, and I realized halfway through, I was like, oh my god. And then I look up, and I had used all these buffs, like I used like a drink for stamina. I was using stamina food. I was using just like everything I could. I was using like the fortitude, like 120 health pot. And I wasn't thinking, knocked my buffs off. I knocked my buffs off in the wrong set of gear, and I was just like, please, we better not wipe. I do not want to take responsibility for this wipe. But we ended up doing it fine, so that was okay. So we killed Saffron.
Yep,
that's
Saffron
awesome.
Down.
That's awesome. Did you guys get the attempt KT or?
Oh yeah, we had 5 attempts
6.
on KT.
Oh, okay.
6. I only logged. I only logged 5. For some reason, I forgot to restart logs at one of our wipes.
How far did you guys get?
So our first
23%
with world buffs,
wow,
very strong. We didn't go re-world buff though because we were making so many simple mistakes that it didn't seem like a good time to go re-world buff, and we sort of just made simple mistakes all the way through. On our second to last attempt, with no world buffs, we finally got to like the bug stage again, where the bugs come out.
That
And we
that
kinda
was
handled it
our
pretty poorly.
23% one. Our first one we
Our
got.
first one was like 30.
I think we got to 40, like, and then we got it down somewhere in the like 30s. But like
Okay, yeah,
most
yeah.
people were dead at that point. We just got to see it. But then we actually, with no world buffs, actually did, and lots of people running out of consumes too.
Yeah.
Got him down to 23%. So
That's really
I'm
good.
positive
That's actually
if we had world buffs, we would take it.
I think you
Yeah,
guys get
It's the worst part about Classic, I think, is that 40 people is so many. And maybe if you're more serious about the game, or a guild that's more serious, it's a little easier. But like, we can ask people to stay an extra 15 minutes to 30 minutes, and I think that's about what we did. Maybe 10 minutes over, but we can't schedule like a second raid night to go finish the lockout.
Yeah.
It's just impossible to get those 40 people together again.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, but I mean, I wish. Here's the thing about KT. I think because the melee's positioning is so important, right? Like that is because if it chains and you start losing people to the ice tombs, it's really hard to heal 10 people that have that, right? 2 or 3 you can do it, but
something
what we
I'm
do
curious
is
about. Do you use 3 melee groups or 2 melee groups? Because
we have 3.
you have
Yeah,
We make it
3. Okay, because I've
Top of the
seen
big-
some people use 2 so that they actually, they're a triangle spread out instead of a square,
Right.
so it gives more
Do that.
room for air.
The problem with that is, though, if one of those bases, say the base of the triangle, say the left base is that's 50% more melee, so that's like 5, 6, 7, even 8 melee getting ice tombed.
yeah,
That's hard to heal.
that's really hard to heal, and
Or you can do it a lot easier because of chain heal, but I wouldn't even
Yeah.
know how Alliance would get that many people healed that quickly.
you
It's
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You have to have. I would put priests in the melee groups, to
That would help.
healing.
Yeah.
But you want to make sure that your melee are using 2 greater frost protection potions. You know what I mean, as much as they can,
Yeah,
right?
we were trying to do that.
It doesn't do anything with that mechanic. It's 130%
I'm
of your
sorry.
health.
Is it the no frost? Even the juju.
The frost tomb.
Yeah. Oh, okay. The frost bolt.
It's
The frost bolt.
130%
Right.
of your health. No,
Yeah.
not the
Like-
frost bolt. The one
Right.
that puts you in the ice block.
No. That can't be mitigated. Is what you're saying?
No, it
by
can't be
any-
mitigated.
Yeah, right.
It's 130% of your health pool.
Yeah,
Nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
Which is our main tank pointed out, or one of our main tanks pointed out that like warriors that aren't tanking might as well take off flask and stamina buffs, because it's just more on the healers to heal up, because it's a straight percentage of your health.
Yes.
Correct.
That's yeah.
But where we
yeah.
really struggle is on the second phase where the mind controls come up. It seems to always
Right.
grab all of our tanks. And
That's
then
the worst possible
That's the
scenario.
worst.
yeah,
luck.
we're trying to get
Yeah.
them back in
Lot.
position,
Well-
and people aren't getting in the right spots afterward.
Yeah, it's not just all of our tanks. Like, so I would love to say that's our biggest problem, but
Mhm.
so I love our melee. Great people. Great people. They would not survive raiding in retail, though. Like, that's just the only thing I can say about
Yeah.
their mechanical ability. They're good at doing DPS,
Yeah.
but like when we would like reposition, or like because what happens is we have tanks in these corners. So when the main tank was always getting MC'd, like almost 100% of the time, the main tank gets MC'd. Kel'Thuzad flips around to the next tank, or the next tank takes aggro. And then readjusting those groups was always a nightmare at that point.
Yeah.
Because
And I think that's still our biggest problem. Is
like-
That's
that
actually the mechanic, by the way. So the main tank will always be mind controlled. The
Yes.
tank that's
oh, okay.
actually tanking Kel'Thuzad
Yeah.
will always be mind controlled.
Yeah.
And then it's
Well,
for
yeah.
other random people.
Yeah.
Then our then we definitely need to fix that situation, because
Well-
Yeah.
that readjustment, that's where we were not interrupting the frostbolt, so our next tank was dying a lot, because like all the melee were just like flipping out about where they need to be, and then the interrupts weren't coming out, and then getting back into the position where you're not gonna all get frozen was a big
Right.
problem after
Mhm.
that. So I think
Yeah.
solving that problem is probably all we need to do to get an easy kill with world buffs.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, so our melee, I saw it back with Cthulhu. I was always in the right spot when we rotated, but no one else. Everybody started in the right spot, but after the rotation, no one else could seem to be in the right spot. I'm like, dude, move over. But So I was in the rear group of KET, and that's super easy. You just get at his butt when he repositions. But I was trying to explain to the other groups, like, you're on his right hand. His right hand should be where you're at and where you reposition. And I even offered to like switch my spot for somebody who was struggling with it. But like people that were on the right hand before, we readjust and all of a sudden they're on the left. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
We have that. We also have some melee who, like, on our third and fourth attempt, are just straight strafing back and forth between groups.
Oh my God.
And like,
See, this
they
is what
just
you got.
can't
It's
help
so
themselves.
hard not to do that. I was struggling with it too. Have to be like, no, back pedal.
What I would do is mark, like, 2 or 3, 3 people of the melee that are really good and know what they do. Just tell everyone else to stack on these people. You know what I mean? It's like, stack on this person. If you're not on
That's
them
probably
and you're
what
in
we
that group,
should've
you're
done.
wrong.
Yeah,
But
it doesn't
Sometimes
like,
we did that on Cthulhu, and the person with the mark was not the person that should have had the mark.
Well, that's a problem. Yeah.
So doesn't Kel'Thuzad's dress actually have 4 points on it? I think that's. I'm pretty sure if you look at his model, he has. It's not a dress, obviously, but it has like these like drapes that come down. I think there's 4 of them. And
I think you're right. Yeah,
use those as, I could be wrong.
to
But-
kind of like
Yeah, we're
max
not- we're not
range it.
melee.
Yeah, it's like little arrows pointing
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah. We're lucky. We're ranged. I will say, though, at the end of that fight, like, as long as the melee can do what they got to do, once the bugs come out, obviously you can't shackle more than 3. But even if the shackles break, like 1 to 2 tanks can tank those mobs pretty easily without taking too much damage. They really don't do that much damage. So, shackle as many as you can. Have the off tanks tank them. They don't do that much crazy damage. And then, like, the other thing is, because one of our biggest problems was, I think, our mages, getting on the CC as quick as possible for people that were mind controlled. One thing that I did is, like, if I saw 2 guys running past me, as a priest, just run over them, psychic screen them, just to get them CC'd until they get sheeped or whatever, just to have a little bit of help with the CC. So I would, if you have a paladin there, just hodge them, do whatever you can, CC them any way you can until they get sheep.
Yeah,
Dude,
that was our
we
other
had,
big problem. Is
we
I was
had-
killing. I would get sheeped, or I would get mind controlled, and I would just
Yeah.
go kill a healer without
Yeah.
any CC
Well,
coming
and-
out. That was
We couldn't stop our freaking melee from AoEing to save our life. I'm even telling warriors, your best DPS is Heroic Strike and Bloodthirst. You only use whirlwind.
Whirlwind,
This like, it was good in the beginning. At this stage of the game, with the gear we have, whirlwind should be used only if you're at 100% rage. Like, you should be just stacking heroic strikes as much as you can, because that's the best DPS. And they're still just whirlwind and breaking CC.
Yeah.
I mean,
think
with our
you're-
guild, our guild is like our guild is always a 2-week guild. Like, I don't think no matter how long we attempted Kel'Thuzad that night, we would have got it down. Like, we just have like a mental block. But I think next week everything will like click a little bit better.
Yeah,
And even with our performance, like, so even our first attempt with world boss, which I think we got to like 30%, we had like 6 melee die in the first minute. So, like, it was like a horrible attempt, and we still got it that far. So
Wow.
I really feel confident next week it's going down.
Yeah.
But like, there are obviously a ton of things we can clean up. But
Yeah, for sure. You guys will get it 100%. If you got Saffron down, you'll get KT down.
Absolutely.
yeah, we looked. There's only 2 guilds, including us now, on our server that are 14 of 15. So we got to get over that hump. There's a million that are 13 of 15, and quite a few that are 15 of 15. But we're just sitting in that little pocket.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
Yeah, but it still felt good. We had some good progression this week. I was dreading coming on the podcast if we didn't drop Saf this week. Like, Yip and I
you
were
did,
so
yeah.
nervous starting out. That's why that Tuesday patchwork just made our hearts drop. But yeah,
we had
Let's-
plans to go rebuff, and I think when you're bringing in like a full raid, which we finally did, it really did just like drop. It felt like it was impossible for us to lose on Saffron fully world buff, because it was just like, well, we're all full health and they're 20% left. Like, I just don't see how
and
this
even
doesn't happen at this point.
Were you on the right or left side, Yip?
I was on the left side.
Okay, I was on the left side, and half of our melee was just standing in Blizzard the entire time too. You know what I mean? Like I'm sitting here going, all right, guys, I thought we said right before, like no DPS if you have to stand in there. It's just like, but we still were able to do it because of world buffs. So I think we could definitely still clean up our act on that fight. But we're now going to move into the news. So real quick, I just forgot to tell you this last week. On 1/20/21, there was a hot fix. Kel'thuzad will now reset if any creatures walk past the encounter door. Although last night, go ahead, you tell him.
Yeah, so we had a Druid AFK for our first attempt, which is fine. But he was AFK and sitting outside the door. When the bugs spawned, they all ran toward him and out the door, and they never came back. And that was it. They disappeared, and then it was just Kel'Thuzad there still. It's basically just phase 2 again.
And our guild leader was like, I think we should not do that. I think we should not do that. Even though
we
it might
decided
be
not to
easy.
attempt to do that on purpose again. But we had so many dead, we couldn't finish it out like that anyway. But we were like, what is going on? I think he might have. There's a chance he came back and then was running away from them. I think he might have been kiting them in the next room. I'm not 100% sure, but all the bugs ran out and they just never respawned again.
According to this hot fix, Kel'Thuzad should completely reset when that happens. So I don't know if they're talking about any creatures. Maybe they just didn't patch the 5 bugs at the end. You know what I mean? Maybe they're just talking about. But the door doesn't open until like phase 2, though, right? Like the door is closed and there's mobs there, during phase 1. So I don't.
Right.
So it must just be that it's not fixed yet. So,
but interesting.
And then another piece of news was target dummies that look like the ones engineering make are on the PTR, and they're acting like training dummies that were released in. Some sites will say Cataclysm, but I swore I used them in Wrath. Training dummies, where you could practice your DPS, practice your heals. It was the first thing I looked for in Classic.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah, it was the first thing I looked for in Classic because I was playing a brand new class I'd never even leveled an alt on. And I'm like, oh, crap. Well, now I have no way to check and see if I'm doing my DPS rotation right. But they're on the PTR now. I know there's one in front of Stormwind. I think there's one in front of Orgrimmar, too.
In Orgrimmar, they where they put them ended up being all the way in the back where the Hunter Trainer is.
Well, no, but this is on the PTR, though.
Right. But okay.
Yeah. But they look like target dummies from the engineering tree, but they're not. They act like training dummies, where you can just you can stand either behind them or in
I think
in
that's
front
just
of
to
them.
test out.
It might just be a PTR thing for people to try.
It could be testing out spell matching, but I hope that they go ahead and just put training dummies in the game for TBC because it's so helpful. Yeah, you can sim your gear. But what's better than you practicing your own rotation with your different gears and actually getting to practice like muscle memory? That's why I was so good in Wrath, is because I could literally just practice for an hour and then all of a sudden, I'm just boom, boom, doing it without even thinking.
I'm so glad you said that, Bob, because I thought I was the only one. I would literally go and spend hours on the practice dummy. Like, I don't know what it is, but I love the stupidity of just sitting there and mashing buttons.
It's a mini game of its own, dude. And you can try different. You can try. What if I pop my trinket early instead of popping it late? And you could really see that instead of just having to open up your own private server to test on mobs that are stationary. Like, it was so good.
One thing I was trying to see when I was because I think they had it on a private server that I was playing on. So one thing that I like to see is how much I could heal myself with Vamp Embrace while using Shadow Word. Because, a lot of Shadow Priests use Shadow Word Death in their cooldown, after Mind Blast. So, depending on what fight it is, if there's not a lot of healing going out, you can get healed. But I wanted to see how much healing I could do to myself from the Vamp, regarding how much damage I was taking from the Shadow Word Death. So it's stuff like that. It's really cool to find out, on a target dummy and stuff,
Yeah.
When I was playing retail, and Classic at the same time, I was tanking in both, but my keybinds were way different just because of how many more spells there are in retail. And That would be so nice because switching back and forth the first like hour in Nax, I was like, oh my god, like pressing my buttons wrong. And I'm like, what is it? Like, what's the shield block? It's so different. Like just having something to just like warm up with.
Yeah, well,
it's really nice.
Blizzard, please give us that because that's hashtag good changes. So seriously, like that doesn't ruin the game. That doesn't make anybody less social. It has nothing to do with any of the complaints the Classic community have ever put out, to my knowledge. So please give us that.
We need them. I was making a joke last night because some of our melee would die to the void zones on KT. I was making a joke. I was like, they must be looking down at their keyboard to where their buttons are. I'm gonna see what's going on.
Yeah.
Dude, sometimes I
need to practice.
Dude, sometimes I have to do that when I'm tanking. Although I'm getting better at it, but like remembering all the different stuff, and you can check the logs. I did pretty good this week. But
you did do good.
But yeah, like it would be just so nice to get that muscle. It's really about the muscle memory because when you're doing a boss, sometimes you die. Like if you can do it 20 times in a row, you do a little 2-minute drill 20 times in a row. It's so huge for just becoming a better player. And you can even find out ways to better bind your keys too. It's just for min-maxing, it's bar none one of the coolest things ever. And I hope they keep it in.
I will say this though, in TBC there is a mob in Netherstorm, a goblin mob, Dr. Boom, who almost works as a training dummy.
There's the Twilight Keepers in Blasted Lands you can kind of test on, but they're facing you. They're not level 63 mobs. You know, like I want to test on a boss where my hit cap matters, and in Wrath they had, you know, they had your level 60 mobs. They had the different versions of what you could do. You could do the 10-man version of a boss, which I think was like 7 or 81 or something like that, or 82. And then you could do the 25-man version. And that was just cool.
I didn't know Bob was so passionate about this. This segment's like longer than our Saffron kill.
Just saying, I use and abuse Dr. Boom on my personal TBC.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, if they don't put them in, I'll definitely have to get that information from you because I definitely, you know, I'm going to be doing Warlock, and I've never raided with a Warlock, so I'm going to need some practice.
I can tell you, Shadow Bolt followed by Shadow Bolt followed by Shadow Bolt.
Wait. In TBC too, because
pretty much,
because in Wrath, like I would have to keep up. It was either 2 or 3 different dots, and then I would have to land shadow bolts while a certain dot was on. I forget exactly, but
I'm not a Warlock lead, but I
only did pugs though on the lock in Wrath.
I am very I know, you know, I've seen a lot of people play on a Warlock and while raiding, and a lot of times they're just spamming Shadow Bolt. And that's, they
vanilla, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. Like I was like,
I mean, AOE, you get to spam a different button called Seed of Corruption.
Seed of Corruption, yeah.
But you know, then
see, I PvP'd in TBC with a lock a ton. You know,
now that's
thousands of hours, but that was SLSL, very different from the Destro that I'm going to have to be to raid in TBC. So, yeah. All right. Well, I was gonna do a little follow up on spell matching, but I think we're gonna save that for next week or the week after some more people have done some more testing. And I really want to talk about TBC, so we're just gonna move right into discussion. All right, guys. Well, there's so many places to start, but I just made kind of a list. So let's just start at pre-patch and some of the things that come in pre-patch. So first thing that comes in with pre-patch is the looking for group tool.
I don't remember this at all.
I do.
I mainly PvP'd in TBC, and maybe that's why, or just play with the friends. But what was the looking for group tool like in TBC?
It's similar to the one in retail where you type in like looking for like you know
like list a group.
Right, you can list and I think it has a certain amount of like prerequisites and stuff that you can like search for. It's nothing like a LF like G like that. Just
it's not cross server.
Yeah,
it's not cross server.
Yeah,
you go to the meeting stone, you right click it, you add yourself to queue, you say what you are, DPS, tank, or warrior. Then anybody who's willing to run a group goes and starts just sending people tells. Like, hey, do you want to hop in the group? Hey, do you want to hop in? It's just a way for you to say,
You have to
hey,
do it at the
guys,
meeting stone?
I'm out here. I believe you do. I'm
I think I
almost
remember- I do
positive
remember
you
that.
do.
I remember the meeting stone functioning differently previous to
I
summoning.
I didn't think you had to use it at the meeting stone. I thought
In
there
Wrath,
was
I think it changes, but I believe.
Well, I know that in
LFG.
in
Yeah.
TBC,
LFG, sorry.
meeting stones become summoning stones as well.
Yeah.
Yes,
At some point,
they do that. So you just stop by it, you
Yeah.
put yourself in the group, then you go do whatever you want to do, and then they can summon you back when someone's willing to run the group. But it's not like an automated system.
I thought at some point they added the LFG tool in the
They might have.
the bottom tab. Yeah,
they might have.
Yeah.
But then in Wrath, it was a actual like cross-server search engine that you would put yourself in, and then
you would just queue up, just like you were queuing for a battleground.
Right.
And that was actually like mid-Wrath that came in.
But you still had to go to the dungeon though, right?
No,
like,
not
in Wrath.
Not in Wrath. There were dungeon people, I believe, standing around the main city, just like there was, for battle masters. But I'm not positive on it. I'm not positive.
It's a menu item. It's at the end of Wrath. I remember it just being a menu item, and you could even with 5 people, you could queue up, and you would just get teleported to the dungeon.
Because when Wrath launched, there was
right.
Yeah, it wasn't at the beginning.
No, it
of
wasn't.
Wrath.
It was like
I remember
somewhere in between.
Right. I remember using a tool that would, like in Wrath, that would find a group for you, and then you all would have to go to the instance together, and you could summon people there. Now, like again, it happened in so many different stages, like in TBC.
I think you're thinking of the actual looking for group tool. Like once they did the true what exists today, it's like Yip said. It was just like in the menu, you could queue as 2, 3, 4. And you chose what role you were going to do, and it always threw you in with a healer, a tank, and it just, like a queue would pop up just like a BG, and you'd have a certain amount of time before it would time out, and you just click it, and boom, you're there, and you're with strangers you don't know, and Yeah,
I think I know I think there were a lot of changes to the system. It started off with the LFG system that's kind of hey, I'm a priest who's looking for this, that, and the other, which was TBC basically.
It's like a wanted ads kind of thing,
right? And then
you just did a little bit.
And then in Wrath it evolved into the kind of like a dungeon queuing thing, and then
and I don't think the way in TBC is all that bad. I mean, honestly, the way in Wrath might not have been all that bad if it wasn't cross server. I mean, what you guys have talked about many times is you meet people in dungeons to come into your guild, to play with, to maybe group without the tool later, like get on your friends list. That's
the difference is that it was a way to meet new people. And honestly, how is that different from World Chat now? Because all World Chat is on Classic is literally the LFG tool. There's no people who say that is somehow just as bad as what was in Wrath. I don't understand that argument at all. Because
as long as it's on your server, that's the biggest thing, because you have some form of accountability. The biggest problem with current retail stuff is you group up with someone random, and then you're all ready to hate each other because there's no accountability at all. You can act however you want.
You got the one asshole, the guy who just I'm not gonna wait for anyone, I'm just gonna pull, and then you got the one guy who's I always felt bad for those people from the Ragnaros servers. Everyone would give them crap, just
although I will say in this Discord era, okay, I remember when Altric Valley first came out, and I got leader. And I made myself master looter, and all of a sudden my guild started blowing up. I think it was you, Yip, even was like, Bob, take it off master looter. Because everybody, the guild leaders were getting spammed in Discord, and everybody was talking crap on the white main Discord.
I kind of hate that about, I like a little bit of accountability. I like seeing someone spamming, this person robs my GDKP, this person's the worst, this person ninja'd. But taking stuff to Discord is so personal to me. It's very, it's like doxing, dude. If you get added, we have a Discord. In our white main Discord, there's a server called Fight Main, and people are calling each other out, and it's way too personal.
Oh
and real. It's very uncomfortable to me.
So yesterday, yesterday one of our warriors. So you know how in Orgrimmar you can reset. So we reset Runthak, who's the guy who gives out the Ani buff. So you kill him, then he resets, and you can give out the Ani buff sooner. And one of our warriors was saw a priest, but the priest's name was like Goodbye Buffs or something like that, and killed the priest. And everyone's yelling at us, saying like, "Stop killing the priest! He's trying to mind control Runthak so that we can re-kill him." Well, I mean, first of all, if you're a priest reset, don't name yourself like I'm going to steal your buffs. You know what I mean? Like,
right, because
you're
everyone
die.
thinks you're one of the you're people who are dispelling people.
Right.
Dude,
So
we
my
have
guilty
anybody who kills someone trying to reset Ani and Neff. Boy, they take some heat, dude. Like, and I mean, me included, because I'm like sitting here like, okay, dude, ZG Buff's ticket. Like, stop killing him. Oh man.
Yeah,
I mean, there's no way that priest also isn't a dispeller, right?
Yeah,
He's there to dispel, and if someone's gonna pay him, I'm sure he'll reset.
You know what? And I told him, I was like, dude, don't worry about it. Like, screw him.
Yeah.
Like, just like, I'm so sick of the whole world buff thing at this point that I'm just like, I could give a shit less if anyone's mad at my guild, to be honest.
Oh well, yeah, we're very.
It's just like one of those things. It's just so toxic, dude. It's just like
we have a girl in our guild who's pretty famous. She we had two people, literally, we were flying out from Ironforge yesterday. They literally waited till we all did the whole group fly out, and they sapped Ashley right before we all left, and then they killed her. Like, she's known so hard for like trolling the horde on the other side that they just search her out.
Yeah,
we're lucky that we don't have much alliance, because the alliance that we do have, it does seem like they are they're called Cuddly Quoo, and they make it their life to try to make the horde's life as miserable as they can. Most of them are horde alt. But I honestly I give
some
them
of them
credit,
are probably in your guild too.
I mean, honestly though, imagine being one of the only like there's probably like literally maybe over 100 something alliance on our server. And that's it. You know what I mean? Our server is 98 to 99% horde. So any alliance that has stuck this far out, I give them fucking credit on our server,
Yeah, we're in a really healthy spot right now. Like, we don't have, this week was actually nuts for some reason. Like, there was like a massacre in Booty Bay on Thursday that everyone was going at it because there like wasn't a heart for a long time. But other than that, like, we haven't had anywhere near as many dispellers. We're at 50-50 like exactly right now, and everyone just minds their own business.
That's pretty good.
That's interesting.
Except for those two rogues.
Ironforge.pro like just looks at like raiders. It just uses Warcraft logs, but it says you have roughly, if I'm reading this right, 88 alliance on your server that raided in the last 2 weeks.
So two guilds,
2 raids.
Yeah,
2 raids.
2 raids. Yeah,
that's
crazy.
It's about what I heard. Yep,
it is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah. All right, so looking for group tools coming in. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's kind of cool. We don't know the exact, there'll be plenty of shows that we talk about the exact way how things work, but this is just kind of talking about the things that change. So the next thing on my list, which is really big for hunters and maybe even locks. Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
All pets will now receive a percentage of their master's armor, spell damage, spell resistances, attack power, and stamina, which is really cool because those kind of like at this point of the game, pets are pretty worthless to, and for sure, hunters, like because they're just going to die so quickly and they don't scale with all the crazy gear that they have.
Right. Well, they do. So the tier 1 and tier 2. So this is kind of extending the set bonuses that they gave hunters, because the tier 1 set bonus increases your pet's armor, health. So I have a hunter alt. That's the only reason why I know this. And I think what they did was they said, well, let's not make this gear dependent. Let's make it dependent on the actual owner's health and stamina and armor, instead of putting it as a set bonus. So I don't know about warlocks, but I know that's why for hunters.
Well, this right here is literally why I know for a fact why. Just one of the reasons, right? Hunters are so good in their pre-best gear. So warlocks obviously take the top DPS spot once they start going in tier, and they get like, even with like a lot of the frost sweep set where the tailoring set and stuff like that. When it comes to pre-raid BIS, hunters do Beast Mastery Hunters do the most damage, right? And this is part of it because their pets do so much damage. You know, when you have what's the new attack called? Kill Command. But hunters in pre-raid BIS like do insane amount of damage because of number one, their pet's doing so much amount of damage because of this, and the fact that you know, they're with their hit rating and stuff like that, like they don't have that much issue. Because I think the pet, when I was doing looking back before, but I believe the pet in like when you're in TBC does something like 40% or not more, if not more, of the hunter's damage in TBC.
Wow.
Yeah, especially in the pre-raid BIS.
Yeah, when it's a Beastmaster Hunter.
When it's a Beast Mastery Hunter. So this right there, I think, is one of the reasons why they're so strong in that, like ready to go. Like you can have a hunter in like greens and blues, and they're going to be doing really good TPS.
Maybe Yip will go back to his roots and be
right.
Yip's Hunter for TBC.
Yeah,
going back to your roots.
I was gonna play Hunter in retail. I love Beastmaster Hunter. Probably starting in TBC is probably when I started liking Beastmaster Hunter. And yeah, I mean, hunters are awesome. And the pets should do a ton of damage. And like they are in retail, they're basically unkillable in retail, which is very handy. The only thing is you have to like maneuver better with it. You have to be able to like know what to attack with your pet, and you don't want to like have it move back and forth between a lot of different targets and you lose DPS. I like that play style more than just like my pet's dead.
I don't know about hunters, but I know as my warlock, especially in PvP, I had to turn all my moves, most of them, to not auto cast. Like I was basically controlling my pet's spell interrupt, controlling my pet to come back when it was getting focused. Like there's a lot of micromanaging with your pets with a warlock, and I'm assuming that it becomes that way with hunters as well in TBC, instead of just set it on target, forget it, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, like hunters are famous for having a one button macro that they can basically DPS with. I don't know if that's going to work, but I'm sure a variant of that will exist. It's a very simplistic rotation. Actually, pretty much everyone has a pretty simple rotation DPS wise. Maybe melee is a little bit more involved, but like all the casters are like very
Shadow Priest isn't, I wouldn't say.
Really?
Actually, feral cats have a pretty.
So melee. I said melee definitely has a more difficult
but Shadow Priest is probably out of the rest of the casters, I would say, because you
got another dot to keep up.
Yeah, you have 2 dots, and then undead have a third, every 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you're using Mind Flay, Mind Blast, and Shadow Word Death, and then you also have your pet with the Shadow Fiend and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think Shadow Priest actually would be a fun rotation for sure.
It is. It's a very fun rotation. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have the most fun when I have one button, so caster. Honestly, I think about it like rating. It's kind of like every Nax is like a lot of work. I feel like tanking. I'm just like, man, I got to do all these things right. I got to make sure all these consumes, and I like look behind me and I see those fireballs blast, and I'm like, I want to in my life.
and to do the most damage too, right? It's like,
right?
I mean, it's still, I don't know, being a warrior has been really rewarding to actually
enjoy it now.
Get good at it. Well, I mean, I'm gonna be using the warrior to PvP. So
you're still gonna be amazing there.
So I'm gonna have a good time there. I just hope that the warlock is as fun in PvE, but we'll just have to see. I'm working up. I've got a mage too, so maybe I'll be mage. It just depends.
I mean, if fun for you is doing an obscene amount of damage, then you're going to be having a lot of fun.
Well, I want to do an obscene amount of damage because I do the rotation better than others. And if it's just, spamming Shadow Bolt, I would never feel very good about topping anything. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like if I'm doing things better than other people.
Crits,
yeah, I mean, it'll look cool.
Like,
it's interesting though. Like you say that. But in Classic, it's basically that way. Yet, somebody who is equally as geared as somebody else won't always parse as well. Like, it is interesting. Even in simple rotations, there's a huge amount of variance of how much DPS people are doing. It's kind of like mind-blowing.
Yeah. RNG as part of it, but then skill's the other part of it, right?
Yeah, it just depends. Like, on the warrior, like, you might have one fight where you just get really unlucky with crits, but generally I'm parsing the same as I did the week before, unless I got some new gear,
Right.
But
Well, I mean, in TBC, it's very rare that you're just standing there, spam. Like you're moving around. Even if it's just moving out of the way of a water friggin' thing that boss in SSC, or if it's doing going to those portals for Terran Gorfine and killing those ads that come out, like little stuff like that. Like even if you're just it's still as a DPS, right? You still have other things that you're doing. You know what I mean?
Well,
It's not just
If I really wanted to challenge, I would go ahead and go Arms Warrior or Rogue and try and be the token one guy that did it, and run all over the place.
Be a feral cat. There you go.
Yeah, starting in AQ though, that was I think a biggest problem with our melee is that they are really good at their rotation, but being able to apply that to now there's mechanics for movements involved. Yeah, all of a sudden our legendary parsers are turning into 80% parsers because they're trying to figure out how can I move and optimize DPS. And I think that part is fun and engaging, much more than I get my buttons in the right order.
Well, and you like with the fight links, like the longer the fight, the better, because you realize, oh, okay, well now I can use different cooldowns earlier and still get to use them again, and that was something that was non-existent really until Cthulhu, I think, is the first one you could actually maybe, in an average guild get off, with 2-3 minute cooldowns, where in a really good guild you're still not going to be able to get those off. So it's just I like the longer fights because it gives you more room, and then there's also more trinkets to use and utilize for different fights. And
fights are so much longer in TBC, so much longer.
Thinking that out is one of the coolest things, having the different gear sets and stuff. But another thing that changed, and this is kind of small, but low level spell casts by high level players will receive smaller bonuses to plus healing and plus spell damage. Now, this is actually huge. Yeah, I thought this was the thing about buffs where they actually scale down to the lower level person. No, this is huge. This is downranking changes.
This is the downranking penalty they're talking about, which I can't believe they minimized that so in that one sentence.
Yeah, I know.
So this so essentially there's before TBC came out, there was one penalty that existed in the game. It was called the pre-20 penalty. And what that was, anything you learned, any heal or cast that you learned before level 20, or you were available to learn before level 20, was penalized. As far as spell coefficient is concerned. So now what they did was they wanted to so they realized downrank was a huge part of healing. It's essentially all healing. You can downrank as a DPS for sure, but of course you want to produce maximal DPS. That's the whole theory. But for healers, downranking is huge for mana efficiency. So they wanted to shy away from that. So they instituted another penalty called a downranking penalty. And essentially, if you're level 70, it happens when you're level 60 or any level. It's calculated between the difference between your current level and the level of the spell, and it severely diminishes the spell coefficient the percentage of your spell coefficient of the heal or the cast that you would get. And it's huge. So I actually, in my shaman guide, actually put out 2 graphs to show how impactful it is.
Yeah,
and it shifts everything. Your whole mana efficiency gets shifted significantly. Because of it.
Now that being said,
real quick, just to follow up, you were talking about DPS. You can any rogue or warrior's never going to do that because it costs the same rage. But the only instance where I think
it's impossible to downrank as a warrior.
Yeah, you don't even have the spell anymore. But I think when you see it with casters, it's usually mage AOE farms where they're using it to group up mobs. Is really the only time.
Yeah. Shaman sometimes uses lower rank of lightning bolt to conserve mana, stuff like that. So this is really interesting because I know this doesn't necessarily affect. Well, it does affect different healers differently, right? Because some healers utilize lower, for instance, priest, right? So priest, you would think that with this, you would say, okay, you're just going to use all your max rank heals. That's not the case at all for priests and for most healers as well. You're still utilizing a lot of the downrank spells. However, you want to be more careful, right? So right now, as a priest, I use heal rank 2, heal rank 4. I use greater heal rank 1, max rank greater heal. I use rank 1 flash of light, flash heal, rank 4 flash heal, max rank flash heal. I use 3 different ranks of renew. I use 3 different ranks of prayer of healing on some fights, and that's a lot, right? Now
that's a lot.
In TBC, it's more like I use greater heal rank 1, which is actually like your most common heal, and there's multiple reasons for that. So it still does an amazing amount of healing for a low amount of mana cost, considering, but it also procs our version of clear casting for priests, and that's why you see holy priests using greater heal rank 1 a lot. So you'll proc clear casting, be able to use your max rank greater heal instead. However, it does still use a small amount of mana for a good heal. So it's in that kind of middle zone, right? Where it's still penalized, but it's still great. Now for shamans, I know it's a little bit different. I know you guys are still utilizing your different ranks of chain heal, correct? It's not all just
So essentially, I mean, TLDR, it really depends upon what you are, who you're doing. Just know that it's there. Yeah. And if you're a healer, you may have to totally rethink about what healers you're going to be using.
You are.
Because the rank that got you through in Nax is now probably heavily down.
Yeah.
The coefficient's heavily reduced because of downranking.
Yeah, but it's still worthwhile in cases, though.
So downranking, quote unquote, the word downranking is still worthwhile, but you'll have to be more cognizant of what ranks you're using.
You're using less ranks as a priest in TBC. That's
because in Classic, it was basically any rank heal still gets the bonus of your bonus healing,
unless it's level 20.
For level 20. Yeah. But yes.
So, correct. For instance, like heal rank 2, okay, as a priest, it's like 100 and I think like 40 something mana, right? And it heals for more. I have about 1350 bonus healing right now, around there. It heals for more than a max rank flash heal, which is like almost 300 mana, right? So it's like double the mana, but it's a quicker spell. Obviously, it's a 1.5 versus a 2.5, so it's a second slower. But the fact that I can use a spell that's 160 whatever mana that heals for more than a max rank flash heal, that's amazing. Now in TPC, that heal gets heavily nerfed because it's a very low. It's like it's like a level 30 or something spell, heal rank 2. So you definitely have to like spells like that are going to be heavily pretty much nerfed.
So it's just a new thought process, but it's something to think of. So also, hots, dots, and channeled spells have been rebalanced to receive a more appropriate, higher percentage of plus spell damage and plus healing. So this makes hots more. Then there'll be another thing right after this, but this makes hots and dots better.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if this is in there as well, but the number of debuffs per person, and it has been increased, and also there's no world buffs, right? So as a healer now, like you don't have to like as a priest.
Hold on. I'll just go ahead and read the next one. Hots from different sources now stack. So now multiple druids can cast rejuvenation spell on one target, and both of them are on it. So that's what you were kind of getting to.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, and so instance, as like for Renew, right? Renew is an amazing hot. It does a lot of healing. You don't really ever have to worry about putting this on a tank anymore. You always a lot of times as a priest or a druid, you're always going to have your hots rolling. You know what I mean? There's no time really. I shouldn't have this hot. A lot of times in a raid, you might be the only holy priest, or you might be the only resto druid, depending on your comp. So you don't have to worry about different, stacks of or different of that. But it's so nice to be able to have, multiple ranks of a certain heal and not have to worry about wiping someone's buffs off as well.
And the debuffs and buff slots, I don't think I had that in there, but it does double in TBC. So we probably should mention that.
Yeah. So on the flip side, if you're a DPS class like a warlock, or you can put on all your dots and it doesn't matter anymore, right? You don't have to worry about. It's going to be very hard to reach that cap.
Right.
I'm sure some people can figure out how to do it, but like generally 99% of the time, you'll not have to worry about using your debuffs that you got yelled at for in Classic, which is super.
Whether it's on a person or a boss.
If we stack warlocks everywhere, it might turn into a problem because you have,
Now I'm pretty sure as a warlock, you actually end up doing more damage. Like this is where I think the Shadow Bolt thing you actually end up doing more damage just by spamming Shadow Bolt
unless you're pre Destro, like Affliction.
Right, unless you're but when you're full like Shadow Destro, I'm almost positive that you do your most damage just by spamming Shadow Bolts. However, I have seen Affliction locks in raids before. You know what I mean? They don't do as much damage, but
it's huge before you get about 10% hit. It will be definitely a big rating spec for sure.
I've even seen, I think when we were running, I mean, this is back in the day, but back in Tempest Keep, we actually had an Affliction Warlock.
I
don't remember exactly why, but
not going to be more than one per raid type of deal.
Right. So yeah, it's so nice though as a healer not having to worry about, is my renew going to be pushed off because someone else put a higher rank one, or am I going to push off the tanks, buffs or anything like that, or is as a Shadow Priest is my Shadow Word Pain going to be pushed off the boss because a hunter's using Serpent Sting or something like that? You know what I mean? So you have to worry about that kind of stuff. It's really nice.
Well, guys, another big one, resilience comes in pre-patch.
I love resilience.
Me too.
Resilience is such an awesome mechanic that I mean, it's also the beginning of just having separate gearing paths for PvE and PvP, where it feels like they're now two sort of different games that you're playing. I've always liked that. I don't really like the whole our guild leader hit GM in like phase 3, I guess. Phase 2.5. So whenever you could, I guess phase 3. And it's like, okay, he's been using those two swords this entire time almost.
So what is resilience? Resilience basically, and if I'm not mistaken, it did change at one point.
I do have that later in the notes. Initially, resilience just cuts down critical strike damage.
Then it did the dot damage as well afterwards, right?
Then it changed to the dot damage as well as channeled spells like Mana Burn and Life
Drain.
Yeah. She's went from suck to blow.
Suck, dude. I'm calling it life suck forever from now on.
Man,
my life sucks.
But yeah, we're pretty sure that we're gonna get 2.4, which it will affect everything if that's the case. But in this pre-patch situation, when TBC first came out, we're going in order. Like resilience only stopped extra damage from critical strikes. So that was huge, because that basically critical strikes was what made globaling someone so easy in
Ellie
Classic.
Shamans. Like an Ellie Shaman, warriors popping recklessness, stuff like that. So it's a big thing, and I'm actually, I definitely hope we end up getting the later version of it, right? Because if not, SL locks will be that much stronger.
Yep,
you know what I mean?
The only time season 1 was the only time I ever hit Gladiator, and it was just because freaking Priest and SL lock, I was unkillable as well as just dotting. I mean, it was just war of attrition. And like everybody in Arena talks about these burn specs, but to be quite honest, most of the time in TBC, if you were at the highest ranks, you were not getting by with a burn spec in 2s or 3s. It was a war of attrition. You were going to run the other party out of mana. Now, that being said, though, those comps work great in the lower ranks. So I mean,
absolutely.
Everybody has their place. You don't have to be the highest rank, but
Yeah, absolutely. You saw a lot more of that early days, and like in the lower ranks, you would see when season 1, when I first started PvPing, and we all did, right, in the arena, 2v2 was kind of like most people did 2v2. 3v3 got more popular later. But like I played mage rogue. This was before I started. I had my priest at this point, but I was primarily playing my rogue. And if you get a sap on the opener before the other player gets in combat, the game's over, right?
Yep,
it's that simple. And you kill a person in 5 seconds, and the games were that quick. And that's when I got a really high rank as well.
then when
that
you get
first
into
season.
later seasons, everybody
Exactly.
has so much resilience that
Resilience and
really
yeah.
burning
And
down someone becomes really hard when they have all their
it does,
CDs, you know.
unless you're doing like 5v5, like
Yeah,
five mages.
5v5 is a whole different
Yeah.
story.
You used to be able to, like, I played warrior, either warrior paladin or warrior druid, and going into like you could hop onto someone's team who was low rank, like your friend's team, just join it. It's like 1300 twos, and it's just you can crit. You can kill people.
Yeah.
You can mortal strike and they're dead. It's so good.
Apparently
That was
people
the most
pretty
fun.
much like they have no resilience, right? So
They
if
have
you
no
have no
resilience.
resilience in PvP, you're getting demolished. Now, I want to ask you guys something because I remember back in the day there was this big conversation about tanks using some resilience and some resilience gear, and if it was good for tanks or not. And I remember certain tanks saying, "Oh, resilience is like really good in certain instances and stuff like that." Do any of you guys remember any of those talks or conversations about like resilience in PvE and tanks using it?
In PvE, I don't remember because I really didn't PvE. I was like hardcore PvP all through TBC because I was so burnt out of 5 to 6 days a week of 6 to 8 hours a night doing progression in vanilla WoW, and so we literally only raided a little bit, and it was usually with pug groups, and it was when the stuff was on farm. We were just trying to get like a specific trinket or something. But I do remember conversations about rogues possibly not using resilience gear in arena because being able to burn down faster, but it's the opposite thing there. But I believe resilience still works in PvE though for the non-crit stuff.
Yeah, I don't know what the real conclusion is, but when I would tank on my warrior, I would keep a couple pieces of resilience gear. I remember people would think that is what you do.
I remember
don't
that
know
as well,
if that's the numerical correct answer, but
obviously,
I did do it.
For certain tanks, like defense is like once you have your defense cap, like for feral druids, like defense was like you had to get your defense cap, and stuff like that first, and that was like you had to make sure you do all these things first, and then if you had a little bit of extra like resilience gear or something like that, that's what I remember, like certain fights or some people doing it. I just thought it interesting of like that kind of thinking and that kind of like min-maxing type of thinking of like are there going to be, obviously a lot of people do end up getting some PvP gear for PvE, we used to call them welfare epics, you know what I mean? You go in there, do some BGs, you get a couple pieces of gear, and it's better than some of the stuff you could get in heroics and whatever. So yeah, you will see some of that overlap, but seeing PvP gear, or PvE gear and PvE also, like you said, maybe if you're a rogue or that, but I remember doing arena or even BGs, and you see like a bunch of people in their raid gear, because it looked similar, a lot of the raid geir compared to the PvP gear, except the color differences.
Yeah, it's almost exactly the same, which is so weird, but the colors are different.
Yeah, so you see them, and at first like, oh crap, these guys are decked out. They're like, wait a minute, that's PvE gear, and they just start going down like crazy,
Just to throw it out there, Warlock was it tier 2 or season 2 arena gear? I don't know what it was in PvE, but those shoulders that have the wings that pop out every once in a while, best shoulders ever in the game.
Oh yeah. Oh, was that tier 5 or tier 6? I forget.
I think it was season 2, maybe season 3 of arena, because I only got those. I never got the ones from raiding.
Season 1 or tier 4 was like the blueberry head, was like the black with like the purple, right? And then the one after that was, I forget, but then tier 6 or season 3 was like the horns with the wings. I think that was tier 6.
Yeah, and it was the shoulders that gave you the wings. Yeah, it's the coolest set ever. But
oh, the season 5 was like the red shoulders, the black and red with like the spikes on them. That was
like those.
Those are cool.
I forget it's corruption set or whatever. I think that's it's a good look too.
The best tier sets, I think, at any point in the game, I think was TBC, in my opinion.
I will say the Warlock
with the eyes. It's like they're a little silly looking. They're
I like that too. I really do.
Perfect for gnomes too.
Yeah.
I can't cast that yet. I can't
cast that yet.
There, you do it so much better. All right, so the next thing on the list was no more glancing blows, and I think I wrote this down wrong because it's not that I was getting told by Melderon in the pre-show, it's not that there's no more glancing blows, just the way weapon skill now works is not combating glancing. Here, why don't you just explain it?
Yeah. So okay, you guys know that the orc racial plus axe, human racial plus sword, and mace is like broken, right? Like
Yeah,
that is
basically +8 of swords or axe
Yeah.
is going to glancing blows take away 40% of your damage.
30 to 40%.
Yeah, so if you have 8 plus 8 on your axes or swords, your glancing blow penalty goes down to 5% instead of 40%.
To the minimum.
Yeah, and so that's the way it works now.
Yeah, so there's a 40% chance to glance in Classic WoW, no matter what. You cannot mitigate that. You can mitigate the penalty of the glance. But this only happens on white hits, right? Yellow hits cannot glance. It's on a different roll system. Let's forget those. Let's throw them out the window. We're talking about white attacks here. White attacks have a 40% chance to glance in Classic WoW, and you can remove the damage reduction of the glance by weapon skill. Okay. In TBC, weapon skill caps at 350. There's no more additional weapon skill you can get.
Now it's weapon rating, right?
Expertise.
Expertise, that's what it is.
Yeah. Because of that, you can no longer mitigate glancing penalty. However, Blizzard reduced the glancing chance from 40 to 25. So that's a huge increase in DPS right there for melee. Now, expertise takes weapons still exists in the game, but it caps at 350. It can affect glances, but expertise can affect parry and dodge chance. So the more expertise you have, the less you'll be parried and dodged.
So the worse you are at getting behind the boss, the more expertise you should stack.
Well, they can dodge no matter what.
You can dodge from the back or the front. So
dodges still happen.
Wait, you can dodge from the back?
Yep, dodges can still happen. Yeah,
bosses or mobs can dodge you even
only parry that.
There's so much about this game. I really didn't know that.
You've never seen. Do you have a floating combat text? Do you see how much damage you do?
I've actually got a pretty fancy one.
Show up?
No, not when I'm behind them.
It's like high. It's a high percent. It's like 5% or something. They dodge.
Even when I was testing on the target dummy on the PTR yesterday, I didn't get any dodges when I was standing behind him.
You must have a lot of hit rate. Huh?
That's probably
it doesn't help dodge either.
Oh right.
Yeah.
So that's
weird.
Coming from but if you look at your logs, look at your logs, I guarantee you'll see dodges from behind. So
as a rogue,
so what they did was they changed the weapon skill ratios for humans and orcs to expertise. Right. There's no more weapon skill past 350. You can't go past 350 at all, which is why it doesn't affect glancing penalties. They don't tell you that, but that's why it doesn't affect glancing.
Gotcha. But they made glancing not as crazy. So, I mean, that kind of helps.
25% instead of 40% of the time. That's huge. And again, yellows don't glance, so that's not. That's only on the white attack table. The single rule system, which we can get into. We can get into that all day.
I know. There's so much. Well, okay, so.
Well, I have an interesting thing to bring up.
Okay, go ahead.
Just so we talked about it a little earlier, but I can confirm that in the pre-patch, you could summon with the meeting stone. I know we're talking about it a lot, but the summon with the meeting stone comes in the pre-patch. I'm looking at it right now.
That's awesome.
2.0.1.
So, question: do you guys think we're going to see a pre-patch in Classic, or do you think it's going to go right into TBC?
I think it's going to be a pre-patch, and I think they're actually going to be smart and let you create
Paladins,
space goats, and
let you create them or start leveling them. There's a big difference there, right? Just create them and have them ready.
I think start leveling them.
Wow,
the only reason they held it out before is because you had to buy an expansion to get it. Now that you just have it, what's the reasoning to not let people do that? It'll just get a ton of people who aren't even going to play that just to come back for that pre-patch time to just level one up for just shits and giggles.
In the leaks that came out, there was a pre-patch date, which makes me believe that there's a pre-patch because I believe the dates that were sent out, they were right on about Nax, so I think that they're pretty much right on about TBC, and they say that in April there's going to be a pre-patch for TBC. I don't think that you're going to be able to make or level a shaman. I think that the current PTR stuff is what's going to come. So I think like the spell batching removal is going to come in pre-patch, like in April or something like that.
Everything we're talking about should be coming. Everything we've covered is pre-patch original WoW. So everything, all of these changes should be coming.
Yeah, like the normal TBC pre-patch. But I mean, like the spell batching is not something that's addressed in the pre-patch. I think that definitely is going to come in. Yeah.
But like, I really do think, I guess what I'm saying is I don't for sure think that this is what Blizzard's going to do. But I think they're crazy if they don't allow us to make paladins and shamans on the opposite side, because it's just a win-win. It's a complete win-win, and it's a good time for them to test everything. I mean, it will get people to run more dungeons, more raids, to gear up those paladins and shamans. I mean, it would make the pre-patch time a booming time. So I just don't see why they wouldn't do it.
It would liven up all the warriors who need to reroll also. They'll be able to reroll at that point too.
True. Yeah, we could reroll to whatever, work up with our paladin or shaman buddy. Like, it could be pretty cool.
It's interesting. Yeah, I'm really curious to see what they're going to do. I think a pre-patch would be really cool. I would love to be able to have like Circle of Healing in Naxx. You know what I mean? Like as a priest, and have like the new talents and stuff like that. That would be awesome. But I don't know about having Paladins and Shamans available, or Blood Elves and Draenei, because I feel like Blood Elves and Draenei are strictly like TBC. You know what I mean? Like that's
they are TBC. Like they're a part of that expansion.
I mean, from a lore perspective, that definitely doesn't make as much sense. But it I feel like it's a win-win. You know what I mean? Yeah. Another thing we have that makes PvP just far better in TBC is, now in PvP, crowd control effects will last no longer than 12 seconds instead of full duration. Also with a chance of heartbeat resist. And that's your chance to resist during it. This is a huge change.
Huge. How many people here have been feared for days?
For days.
Like, it's just for days.
Days. And you run faster. So you're like,
you run faster. And how many duel tournaments have you seen people lose because they ran out of the duel area or something like that?
Yeah, dude.
That's like a bullshit. You know what I mean? And like, this is huge in Arena as well, because now you have Will of Forsaken, and then you have the changes to the trinkets as well. So trinkets, all the trinkets are used to be each race and class. I'm sorry, each class had a different trinket. Now all trinket breaks, all immobilizing and fear effects, all that kind of stuff. So as like an undead,
that's later on in the patches, but that's something that changed later. In TBC.
We'll get in 2.4.3. So with that though, like having those fears being, obviously warlocks are still going to be strong. Shadow priests are still going to be really strong. But being able to have get out of that, and even if you can't get out of it, that the fear is not going to last forever, and the chances of it breaking and stuff like that are not going to. So it's just like, warlocks in duels and shadow priests in duels were just so strong because of the fear and how it worked. It's such a nice thing to see, to have this in TBC. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously just way better. It's just one of those things that is just a million times better. What's funny, as I'm looking through like the pre-patch information, it's so funny how many, you kind of forget how bad just base vanilla is when it comes to things like UI options, and like everything that I fixed with an add-on also gets fixed in TBC for the most part. You get more stats, you can turn on like auto loop by default. There's like all these things that like you don't one, because we have a different interface. We have different menu options than they did in vanilla, because we're using like the modern one, and then all the add-ons we need to use, like extended character sheets, are required.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things we got in Classic that were not in vanilla. I say it over and over again. Like, I remember, I recently got reminded that I was right in my remembering of them talking about TBC, and when TBC was coming out, we're going to have auction house auctioneers at every major city. And I got reminded that I was right because I watched this documentary that was like 6 years ago. It was about World of Warcraft, and they showed the TBC.
I just rewatched that.
Dude, I felt like such a weirdo. I almost cried like 4 times watching
I know,
it.
me too.
Like the first half of it was so like I mean, it just reminded me of all the magic that I had
The glory days.
during that time.
Are you trying to tell me that there weren't auction houses in every city until the pre-patch?
I've told
And
you
they
this
were
many
linked.
times. Yes,
I still don't believe you though, because I know I don't believe you.
I
Wait,
will
there
bet
were.
you.
I think there were, but they weren't linked, right? Wasn't it like that?
Okay,
No,
okay,
no,
maybe
they
weren't.
weren't there.
Listen, I
It was
sold
Iron
chromatic
Forge?
cloaks on my hunter. Listen, I sold chromatic cloaks on my hunter exclusively in Darnassus. So unless you're trying to tell me it was only in pre, I just don't
Okay,
believe that.
It's
I was
possible.
banned. I wasn't banned. My account was disabled, like after AQ came out. So it wasn't the pre-patch, and I sold chromatic cloaks in Darnassus
I
because I was
will
a night
tell
elf.
you, it's possible that it was a later vanilla patch, and I didn't get the memo while I was playing the game, type of
Okay,
deal.
I'll-
but I
yeah, that's
guarantee
fine.
you, during the beginning of World of Warcraft, they were not there. And I did
the
watch
server I
the
was
thing,
on-
and he talks about it in the TBC announcement at BlizzCon. He talks about, and he goes, and auction houses in every major city, and the crowd goes, "Wow!" Like, I just watched it.
Listen, I believe you watched it, but I also know for a fact that pre-AQ or like as AQ came out, at least I was selling chromatic cloaks in Darnassus. I was a night elf. I
Now-
only used the Darnassus auction house.
Well,
Bob, I
listeners, tell
think
us
that
where we're right or wrong.
BlizzCon, I think that BlizzCon was the
middle.
first BlizzCon. Was while vanilla was still
Yeah,
out.
middle
I
of
think
vanilla.
I think it's something that they added in like
Yeah,
mid
middle.
vanilla.
Yeah.
It's very
that's fine.
possible. And listeners, I'd love for you to send us that information because I would love to know because I was kind of scared about that when we were starting Classic. I was
Right.
like, oh
That'd be a
man,
nightmare
going
in
back
Classic.
to
Well-
just having to go to Iron Forge. Oh my God.
Yeah, I do know for a fact that there was a point where the auction houses were not linked. So there was
Yeah.
Stormwind auction house, Ironforge auction house, Darnassus auction house with their own things, right? So if you put something in
Interesting. I don't
the
remember that.
Darnassus auction house, you couldn't buy it in the Stormwind auction house. You can only buy it for the
See, I
Darnassus.
I think that
only
makes sense to
remember
me.
that.
Logically,
I
I
only
think
remember
lore-wise,
that.
they should go back to that. That's
That sounds crazy, but I only remember that for like the cross faction auction house. But yeah, I mean, I could be wrong, but I know for a fact it wasn't there for a long time through vanilla.
See, Melderon and I didn't start playing in vanilla till about around the AQ patch. So a lot of that earlier stuff we don't really know. And when I started playing, I'm almost positive it was still at the point where they weren't linked yet, I think. And then they got linked pretty soon after that.
I'm
but,
guessing when they initially put them in, they weren't linked. So then maybe a patch or two later, they're like, all right, now they're linked.
That's probably what happened. Yeah.
kind of
They're
off
probably
topic.
on
The auction
different
house
servers.
was one of those things that when I started playing WoW, like WoW was just amazing to me. Like I was playing and I was like, "Whoa, this is so amazing!" And like when I had my first, I remember getting my first gold on my first character, which was a dwarf hunter. And I just remember being like, "I have a whole gold. This is amazing!" And I got my first like green drop, and I asked my brother, I was like, "What do I do with this?" And he's like, "Dude, there's an auction house that you can sell it on." And I was like, "In an auction house? They're gonna auction it
Like
off?"
a
And it's
built-in
like I remember
eBay?
just. Yeah, like I remember just my mind was blown by
Dude.
this game.
Okay, I remember the very first time. So I was Horde TBC all till when I quit, but I was Alliance originally in the original vanilla WoW, and I remember the first time I saw a Horde on my PvP server, and I was at that Raptor place. The Raptor place in Wetlands, where there's the whole
Raptor Ridge
thing. Yeah, there's a whole thing below, and there was a horde there, and we just come across each other, and we just run. We're looking at each other. And it's an orc, and I'm like, and we're both. I know he's probably on the same side, going, "Oh my god, it's Alliance!" And we're just like, "What do we do?" And we just start casting crap at each other, and then we both jumped off the edge and died at the bottom.
It's so funny.
I
had a
remember
similar-
it vividly to this day.
My first my first character was a Night Elf Rogue, right? And the first horde I ran to was in Ashenvale. And if you know this, the horde come into Ashenvale at a higher level than the Night Elves do, right? So I was around Ashtanar, and this horde guy, I think he was probably trying to go to, now that I'm thinking to Zorm Strand or over there to do some quests and all, but he was like 4 levels higher than me. He was a hunter, right? So I'm running around, and all of a sudden I get like a concussive shot, start getting no, and I see this guy, and I'm just like standing there, like, what the hell's going on? Like, how is this happening? Like,
Oh, dude,
why?
it was
What?
so cool.
I was so like, it was like such a crazy moment for me because I never had seen like a member of the opposite faction. You know what I mean?
See, and I had came from Dark Age of Camelot, where everything was PvP. It was built around a lot of PvP, and like I was just like, I don't think Horde exists, because leveling to your 30s originally. Like I started a week after the game went live, and I was part of the beta before that, and like it took forever to get to 30. Like it took weeks, and so like I was just like, I don't think Horde exists. I didn't understand like where you like linked up with each other and everything, and so when I saw him, I was like, is that a mob? No, that's a person. What do I hit? I don't even, what? I don't know how to PvP. Like, I mean, it was just like such a vivid memory for me. And then both of us, we didn't really jump off the cliff. We just fell off the cliff because we were running around trying to fight each other. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Speaking of all that, there's an honor revamp in
this is what you talked about early on when you first joined the podcast.
Honor becomes currency.
Yeah, you remembered buying all the gear in the pre-patch era.
Dude, I remember. I think I was in 7th grade. I think in French class, my friend came up to me. He's like, "Dude, you can buy GM gear with honor now. You can just earn it and then buy it." And I remember being psyched about that.
I
forgot about it.
I love this because like there's different kinds of currency, right? You have the arena points and you have your honor points, and then like for certain items you need to have a certain rating, right? A certain high level rating for arena points, right? So arena gear, so you have to have arena points, honor points, and a certain level rating. And like some items require, I think it's like it was like. Was it always like this where you need like either storm marks?
Yeah, you need marks. Yes. It'll be like you need 40 worth on gold marks and this amount of honor.
And I can't wait for either storm too.
So it actually turns battlegrounds into something better because
you need to do, right?
Everybody has to do them. And you want to win. Like winning is the biggest thing. Instead of honor farming, instead of all of that, like it could get a lot better. Although we still gotta hope that Blizzard figures something out for pre-mades. And if we're all in one battle group, I don't see why it can't be pre-made against pre-made. Like figure out some rules. Like 10 plus means it's a pre-made or something. I don't know. People are gonna game it regardless, but make it less easy for them to game.
Right. Yeah. I think I don't know. I'm really looking forward to like the PvP aspect of TBC, and I think the honor system of vanilla was just so. The one thing I wish I was able to get to like High Warlord, just so I could always have that title. You know what I mean? You keep your highest title. I got the rank 11.
It's easy to get it now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I just I
mean, honestly, it's the best time to get High Warlord or Grand Marshal.
Yeah. I got to rank 11 on my Shaman. I got to rank 8 on my Priest, I think, and I have like rank 8 on my Rogue as well. But it just makes the one thing I am worried about though is you do still see a lot of bots and a lot of people just trying to farm, for honor. Like that's not going to change, right? You're gonna have people who are just going to go in there and bot and try to get the points that they need to get the gear, right? So that's something that's
your best bet.
Easier. Yeah, it's better to bot now once it's a currency because it's not just a time investment. Like, oh, I'm earning X amount of honor, so if I play more, it's literally like I have a benchmark to hit. So like I don't want to say the one that everyone uses, but there is a particular bot that like normal people were using. It wasn't just like you've got these people who are farming for gold and selling it. It's like regular players start botting.
Was using it, and I was like, I'm not going to do this. First of all, because I really didn't know how to set it up, and second of all, because I was like, I'm not going to do this. But,
I feel like a jerk AFKing in a BG while I'm sitting there, so I'm definitely not going to bot it. I mean, I just like I know some of my friends did it, and I just don't respect them for it. I still love them, but I don't respect them for it.
I agree, and I think that's the one thing that unfortunately is the downside of this. That I think botting does become a little bit more. I mean, botting was pretty big in Classic, right? But I think that's probably going to see even more of it. Like, I'm not that worried about people buying, arena like ratings and stuff like that as much as I am people about botting.
Yeah, because we talked about it. I mean, if you're gonna buy rating in 2s and even 3s, like you're gonna have to have some skill regardless. You're getting a pumper with you, but like you're still going to have to do things. You're not going to be able to just chill and just get moved up. Maybe in 5s, 4 people could boost one person, certain classes maybe, but you're going to have skill. Arena's a whole different ball game, and it's going to be a surprise for a lot of people, I think, because you're really going to have to know how the other classes work, because you're going to have a bunch of different styles for different sets. It's going to take a lot of studying to be good at the arena.
Yeah. I might be crazy, and this might have just because I was a kid back then, but I remember thinking that like Warden was like some sort of ultra, like if you're botting, you're gonna get caught, you're gonna get banned. And I think like in these modern times, I think we all know that isn't the case at all.
Yeah.
So like I think that we're gonna see quite a heavy. I think that the amount of like gold buying that exists right now in Classic, it's gonna like switch over to botting come TBC when it comes to PvP.
Yeah, I that's one thing that I wish that I know this is not the main retail game, right? I know that, but I do wish they had a little bit more structure and a little bit more in the ways of gatekeeping the botting and trying to get because it's sad. I don't think their team is big enough to kind of allow that and what we want, but I kind of wish they took it a little bit more seriously,
Yeah, and I think they do want it to be serious, but I think that they're just, it's a lot, and I think they have put a lot more resources into Classic as of now than the beginning. I think they thought it was going to be a fad. I think now they understand it's one of their biggest revenue lines. It's just what I worry about is what Josh said on the panel is like, where do they look for their next buck? Where are they going to start trying to do transactions? But we should stay on topic though.
Well, I would just my last thing about botting, just as an anecdote, that anyone listening, I would advise against botting, even on a second account. We had someone in our guild who honor botted in Classic on a different account. An account got banned. And he just lost everything.
I believe that was a second account because you could have multiple accounts linked to one account. I didn't know that until my cousin showed me. He has 7 accounts on his one main BattleNet. I think he had 2 accounts on the same BattleNet ID.
I would just advise people that if you're going to bot, be ready to lose everything.
Don't bot.
Don't bot.
Just don't do it.
You might just lose everything. And I think for a lot of people, that risk isn't worth it. Like to not have to do a couple hours of like Warsong goals for your marks, to lose everything you've put into your account is just not.
Most of us who play are boomers. I could forgive this from a 14-year-old kid or a 13-year-old kid, but dude, come on, just don't bot. I know you have to work, but just don't bot. Like, just don't be a jerk. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. But let's just sorry, no, I can go on with this topic forever, but we should probably stick on.
Let's try and stick on topic because I think we can actually get through these. The episode's going to be a little bit longer, but I think we can actually get through these.
Talk about the next thing, right? Arenas added. You know what I mean? That's
did we talk about arenas added in pre-patch? There's going to be a short time where you get to arena as level 60. And I didn't know this was a thing either because like I took a break, like a good 3-week break before TBC came out, like even during pre-patch.
Yeah. Now,
I didn't know that arenas were available, but from what I'm hearing from a lot of people, Willie included, is that arenas were in the pre-patch.
But you didn't get any rewards from it.
No.
It was just
you just got to play.
It was like skirmishes, basically. Now, I think it is going to be cool to be able to do that. However, it's still going to be a lot different at level 70, right? Because classes become so much different at level 70. But you'll
have the
those
talents.
people,
you'll have
exactly,
level
and
70
those
talents.
people who don't want to, play on a private server and do this and do that or whatever, and there's a lot of private server arena, realms, and it's a good way to get your feet wet again. I think it's better to do this than to play on a retail arena, which is so different compared to what a TBC arena is. I mean, there are similarities, right? There are things to learn from it.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't even do the same damage that you see on screen. Like, it's so weird. Really, a lot of things are good in retail, but I think many people tell me that PvP is just a joke now.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that, though. I would love to be able to to do some PvP at level 6. Let's do some arenas at level 60. It'd be really fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's basically, there's a ton of class changes throughout the pre-patch, but that's basically the bulk of the pre-patch stuff that came in before. So let's move into like 2.1. There's way less going forward on each patch, but 2.1 you get, then this is 2.1 is when the gates opened. Like after pre-patch was over, when the gates opened, you get jewel crafting, the Black Temple. Jewel crafting's huge. Like jewel crafting changes the game and changes gearing so much. Like you could have so much more fun really min-maxing gearing, especially early on before you're worried about getting the bonus.
Yes. Yeah. I think I'm definitely going to be doing jewel crafting on one of my characters. I haven't decided if it's going to be a main or not yet, though. But I'm really excited about jewel crafting.
Yeah,
I don't know how it was in TBC. In Wrath, though, the money flows in Wrath at least. It might be the same in TBC.
It flowed in TBC, but I wonder if it will with everybody knowing to go jewel crafting this time around.
Right. Well, I will say this is like, you definitely want to make sure you're saving certain amounts of ore and certain gems and stuff like that now. It's going to be a lot. And even if you're not planning on being a jewel crafter, you can make a lot of money by selling ore to prospect and certain gems and stuff like that. So
that's ore, not bars. Just to let you guys know, like converting to bars, make it so you can no longer prospect using jewel crafting. Because jewel crafting, you prospect ore, and then you basically break the ore apart and get different items from the ore. Usually gems of different. I'm trying to remember all the different things you get, but you get gems of different sorts. You turn those into gems. Yeah, it changes everything. It's really cool when, and it's such a good money maker because it's also a money sink, because once you use a gem in a piece of gear, you can never take it out. You can replace it on top of it. Yeah. But you could never take it out. So it's a great way. It was a smart way for them to put in a pretty big money sink, because people change out gems constantly. They're like, well, I've got this green gem, I'll put it in here for now. And then they throw in a blue, then they get a purple, they throw that in.
Now, I just wanted to, because I know we jumped over the black, we're talking at the Black Temple thing, we mentioned that. But so a lot of people don't realize this, but at the launch of TBC, SSC, Tempest Keep, Kara, Gruul's Lair, like all these things were available. TBC launched in January of 2007, and all these raids were already. Now, of course, there's the attunement process, right? But Black Temple was released. Now, that doesn't mean people got to do it by then. But in May of 2007, right? So you have from January to May, you have the next tier already being released. Now, something that a lot of us all here are big proponents of is having time gated content, right? So obviously, I think it would be really good to be able to have certain raids available at the launch, and then to time gate certain raids as well, because the attunement process is going to be done a lot quicker, I think, by people now. And you're going to have certain guilds rushing to the content before a lot of others. So you might go ahead and see, like we said, from January to May, that's 6 months, right? You might have people in, the first couple of months of the game in tier 5 or something like that, right? And I don't think that's a very good thing to do. So I would like to see Blizzard somehow time gate the content as they did in Classic, right? Having certain raids released. But the problem is like, the attunement process is an integral part of TBC, and getting attuned to raids and getting attuned, first you have to get your reputations, and then you have to get them up. Then you have to get keys. You have to go to what's the place in Tenaris, the Caverns of Time, and do all this thing, get into Karazhan. Then from there, and it's an ongoing process. But I think even with the attunement process, we still need to have time-gated content as well.
And everybody's seen that big flow chart that makes it look like these attunements are so hard, but honestly, it's not. You're going to be doing a lot of these heroics just so you can get gear, because heroics start giving badges, and you can buy badge gear. It's another thing,
You get a reputation for doing things too.
Yeah, you get the rep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you need the rep to do different things. Like it's like it's not as daunting as you would think, and so the big guilds are going to have the best gear possible. They're going to skip raids probably just to get world first if they have the ability to do it. And I don't think that's good for anybody in the game. I think that just kind of makes us middle people like kind of like
Yeah, cool part of Classic is that you're doing the same content as each other. I think Nax is the first one that's really like setting people apart. Like the first dude with Mind of Menethil week 1 on our server got to enjoy like a pleasure that no one else could for a while. But like, you know, you're in MC or BWL, like even if you're doing it slower, you're still doing the same content. And I think that if they don't gate some of this content, it's just going to be like the disparity is going to be so big. I think it's going to drive casual people away. It's not going to feel good to be so far behind the people at the top.
And it doesn't have to be done, you know, too crazy. Like I think some private servers did a really good job in time gaming some things. I think Blizzard could look at that. You know, one thing I am a little wary of is because, you know, when TBC first came out, a lot of the gear in Karazhan was absolute crap. Now, if Kara is going to be available at launch with 2.4.3
the gear's
gearing,
a lot better. Yeah,
gear is really good, comparable to, you know, the gear that you get in the 25-man raids. So, you know, I think we have to be, you know, like, should we have it where there's a time where, you know, you're just doing heroics and stuff like that, and then like, you know, then they come out with like, you know, Gruul's Lair and Kara. Like, I don't know. I think it's a conversation to be had there, obviously. And but I don't think it has to be too crazy. I think we just have to make sure that, you know, we don't allow a certain small minority of people to get really far ahead of everyone else. And, you know, some people would argue, say, oh, well, that's a reward that they can have to, you know, to do that. But at the same time, you know, it's going to mess up PvP, you know, arena. If you have people in there, you know, even with PvE gear, if you have people in there with PvE gear, that's, you know, say from Black Temple, compared to someone who, you know, in season 1, like when you don't even have your weapons or anything yet, you know, the arena is going to be skewed really, really bad, right? Because if it was 6 months in TBC time, you know, back then, it might be 3 months, you know what I mean? And now to where they bring out TBC, right? Because they do things a lot faster. We saw that with Classic and whatnot. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, okay. The last thing on 2.1 was Druid Epic Flight Form, and I just want to pitch a bitch about this. Like, I don't think it's fair that Druids get to have Epic Flight Form in their transformation, and they get to herb with it. I think it's kind of BS.
I also can train it at level 68, I believe.
Yeah, come on.
Original form, yeah, level 68. Yeah,
I leveled a Druid just for this specific thing.
Just so you could fly down, mine or freaking
or take your
herb.
Take your herb, I think you might be able to.
I don't think you can mine. I think you can herb though.
You might be
imagine mining as a bird.
yeah.
Oh, but I just wanted to complain about that.
To play devil's advocate without Druid Epic Flight Form, there probably wouldn't be a Raven Lord mount, which is an amazing ground mount. So I'll let those Druids get their flight form.
I mean,
I think at the beginning, you had to bring a Druid right at the beginning every time to kill that boss.
Bring a Druid, yes.
This is going to sound pretty bad, but like outside of PvP, because I think they're masters in the arena. I mean, they got to give them something, right? They're Druids.
No, Druid tanks are really good.
They're
a
okay.
lot better.
Yeah, they're good. They're good.
And Druid healers are amazing. I mean,
you have to look at a bear the whole time you do it. You know what I mean? Like you can't even look at your gear.
I just remember not being able to gank them, like come down, they just switch to flight form and be gone. I mean, come on, dude. Come on.
Flight form right into stealth, yeah.
What's the expansion where they have to be a tree when they heal? Like they have no choice.
Wrath.
No,
it's TBC comes out tree form.
No, you can heal without tree form though. Like you don't take tree form in arena. You know what I mean? Like
no, you don't. But I think it's definitely Wrath because we had a tree in our raid.
I mean, you can still heal, I think, but your heals aren't nearly as strong as they are.
They get the buff.
But I always give Druid shit. They're really, really good tanks. And they're great healers, too. It's just like, I don't know. I just never... The only class that if someone said to me, like, you know, what's your least favorite? It's always been Druid. Always been
Druids hit their prime in Wrath, I believe. In Wrath, they become probably the best tank. I mean, I would say probably without a doubt the best tank in Wrath. They become one of the best healers.
I don't know about that, dude.
Hold on. We're talking about TBC
Wrath.
though, so I
True.
gotta reel you guys back in. So let's go to 2.2. We're getting close to the finish line here, guys. Like AOE damage caps come in 2.2. They'll probably be in at the start of the game when TBC comes out, but AOE damage caps basically make it so no more 280 mob Moradon pulls, even at level 70, because what it does is after you hit the cap, say the cap is 20, once you go to 21, all the damage starts getting split up. So you can only do full damage on 20 mobs, and then any mob past that, it just gets divided. And so
I don't even think it's 20. I think it might be a little less than that.
I think it might be less. I think it might be 15, maybe 12.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy stuff's gone, but like regular mage AoE is not gone. So I don't really mind too much. Like I leveled my mage exclusively through AoE in TBC and in Wrath, and it's not a problem at all doing it that way. So I don't mind that change.
Yeah,
really.
But this changes a lot. There's only a few things. It's weird though, because Warlock's Seed of Corruption is not affected by the AoE caps, so that makes them pretty awesome for some AoE damage. Paladin's Consecration's not affected by it, so Paladins are going to be basically the masters of
you guys remember
AoE.
You got the anyone remember WoW Hobbs? He'd make all these videos about one pulling like Scarlet Monastery in early TBC with a single flame shield.
Why is Consecration not considered? Because they tank?
Know. Yeah, maybe. I have no idea.
It's because of the tanking, yes, because it would kind of skew into their tanking abilities, because I mean there aren't
nets though. I don't know. That seems
I don't because I think also the damage threshold of it is so low that they kind of give them a break there. Because it's nowhere near as high as like but prop pallies are will become a lot of the people, because we're obviously going to still see people buy their way up to level 60 or level 70, whatever, to get up there. And I think, prop pallies, once they get to level cap, will probably be the people selling that stuff over a mage instead, so.
And some people did find out, though, they were looking through the notes and they don't see Flame Strike ever noted that it will be affected by the AoE damage cap. So I wonder if it's like AoE that you put on the ground, that like maybe that's the deal. But they've looked through, like I think it was Willie that looked through and saw that Flame Strike was not affected by the AoE damage caps, but almost everything is.
Flame Strike and Blizzard both have a reticle when you select it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Flame Strike sticks on the ground. I guess Blizz. Yeah, I was just saying something that's on the ground. Maybe I don't know. I'm just guessing. Like it probably was just stuff that fell through the cracks. Stuff that wasn't used as much. That they're like, we don't need to put that in there because it's not being used right now, type of deal. But that's definitely something that changes. Voice chat comes in.
Voice chat that has never been used, right?
Dude, I used it once. It was horrible. I was like,
all
right, back
I think
to
everyone tried it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I remember seeing this getting announced way back in the day. I was like, oh my God, a Blizzard integrated voice chat. This is going to be awesome. And I was like, no, we're still using Vent, guys. Like, we're not. No,
I went right. I was like, $9.99 a month. I think we'll take that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this was amazing. If this could have been good back then, this would have been really awesome, because at the time we were using some pretty like weirdo, like not exactly ideal things. But now with like Discord and stuff, it's like, well, I mean, like what are you gonna do? I mean, even if they improved voice chat in game, people still wouldn't be using it, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yep. In 2.2, this is where resilience starts to affect dots.
Yep.
So it's where they throw that in. This is where I know Melderon wanted to talk about. This is where haste gets rebalanced. So did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I don't know what it was before, but I can tell you what it is. It's going to be when it comes in. So there's two ways to look at haste. One of them is from a spellcaster's point of view, one from a melee. So instant attacks, melee attacks, the GCD is shortened, so you can attack more frequently. Think Bloodlust, right? It's basically like Bloodlust is just a form of haste, or heroism. Excuse me, I have Alliance people listening. Sorry about that. But
Bloodlust.
Yeah. So, from a caster's perspective, in the time it would take you to cast 100 spells, a 1% haste increase, you can cast 101. It's not that the cast time is reduced by 1%. It's like that's the way you should think of it. That you should think of it.
And
If
I
you
believe at this
Yeah.
point they started to make it so it affected the global cooldown too. So you could actually bring your
Right.
global cooldown to just one. You couldn't go below 1 second, but you could
1
bring it to 1 second.
Yeah. So, but for spells that have cast times, the GC doesn't matter, right? Because the cast is longer than the GCD. So for casts, you can think of it, if you have 1% haste and the time it takes you to cast 100 spells, you can now cast 101.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Haste is amazing. Yeah.
So then also at this point, Hallows End gets a revamp, and now Hallows End allows a specific boss fight, the Headless Horseman in
Cry
SM.
for mercy. The
I get the-
reckoning has come.
Okay, thank you. I get to tell my cringe story. I was a big warrior PvPer at this time, and I definitely wore that helmet and had a little macro that I yelled his little like I forget his little poem. I'd be charging at people with my poem as I murdered them, and I was like,
I know it by heart. It's
ugh.
prepare yourselves, the bells have tolled. Shelter your weak, your young, and your old. Each of you shall pay the final sum. Cry for mercy, the reckoning has come.
Nice.
Yeah, I would just
Just
yell
read it
that.
off the screen. You didn't.
No, I did not. I got that memorized.
Yeah, he's cool.
I mean, to be
Cool
fair,
fight.
he's sitting back from the monitor. You'd have to have some pretty good eyes, you know. Yeah, that was pretty good. And it's a chance to get a mount. A chance to get the Headless Horseman
was
mount.
the mount released in? Because I got really upset about this, right? Because I tell the story a lot, but I got the Fiery Warhorse mount in like one of my first. I think it was my first run in Kara on my priest. I rolled 100 on it, right? Fiery Warhorse was like my favorite mount, and then they released the Headless Horseman mount.
Right.
That is basically a reskin of it, and it flies.
It might have been
Wrath.
It might have been Wrath.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure actually. The notes didn't say, so now I'm second guessing and wondering if it's Wrath.
Was Wrath when the mount came out.
Oh man.
Yeah,
all right, that's a bummer. All right, well, patch 2.3 guild banks come in. Guild banks are huge. They change everything.
Yep.
Like it gives, you can trust your guild tremendously, but it's still having transparency just builds that trust bigger. It makes it so not one person has to manage it on an alt. Multiple people can manage it. You can set like there's a lot of stuff that comes in later, but in TBC you can set like to where there's a certain amount of gold your people could use a week to repair, which is, a little nice thing. Like it's just, everybody can see what's in the bank. It's just cool.
Yeah, it's definitely huge. I mean, coming from someone who, runs a guild, even though I don't take care of the guild bank stuff. That's Talix. But yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
Really excited about having a guild bank. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, guild bank has been like a problem for us all of Classic, like between like transparency about what's in the guild bank. Like it helps make people feel more comfortable, like helping supply the guild bank if you're handing things out. Like a group guild bank is just always better to have, and it's an amazing change.
Yep. And then another change is XP needed to level from 20 to 60 is reduced. And so this will probably, I would guess this comes even in pre-patch, but...
Dude, Bob is so hopeful for this pre-patch.
I don't know. I doubt this would come in the pre-patch. If anything, it'll come
sure it will.
Really? You don't think?
The pre-patch of TBC, right? Like, it'll come out when TBC
vanilla
comes out. Yeah. Because that also means that the mount at 30 thing will probably be in it. And that's not going to happen in the pre-patch. I doubt that.
Yeah, that was very late in TBC. Yeah, we're almost to that.
It was.
So then they also release Zolamon.
I will never,
mount, baby. Get your bear
I will
mount.
never forget the 2.3 Zolamon. I don't know if people used to listen to Nim songs during TBC, but he would put out these rap songs, and it'd be like, guess who's back with a brand new song? 2.3 introducing Zolamon. And I'll just never forget that lyric. Like,
Dude, I remember back then, dude, the some of the content like surrounding WoW, because like we had Tuesday reset day, right? And what Melderon and I would do a lot of the times on the Tuesday reset day was just watch all the new like WoW content,
New WoW
waiting
stuff,
for the
yep.
servers to come back up. I would just sit there and watch all the new stuff, and that's when they had, I think remember the band came out, like the dude. It's just so much cool content.
Yeah. What is it? Horde Chieftains or whatever? Torrent.
Elite
Torrent
Torrent
Chieftains.
Chief
Yeah.
Chieftains. Elite Torrent.
Yeah, that concert was really cool. Like
Mike
everything was like
Morhaim's-
just so interesting back then.
Yeah,
the
Mike
Chief
Morhaim's band.
That's yeah.
Yeah, and so then also we got the bonus healing. So bonus healing now provides 1/3 bonus spell damage, which is kind of nice, so that healers can actually do something.
This was huge for me. I remember because I loved being holy and shadow and on my priest, and it was so nice to be able to get gear, and it would have increases healing done and spell damage, right? So it wasn't just healing or spell damage, and
this was a huge thing.
So like you can go in there in your holy set, right, and like go into shadow and still do a good amount of damage, right? Like if you were doing quests or whatever, right? You don't have to find a whole shadow set. You know what I mean? It was really cool to have that. Yeah.
Also in PvP, right? Because the PvP gear is the same thing, I believe.
Yeah. So
the end PvP gear that had this would mean the healers would get a little bit of spell damage in case they had to do damage in arena.
Which as a priest you are like in high level, not even I would say to mid to high level like PvP. If you're a displeased and you're not like offensively using spells to do damage, you're probably going to lose. Like that was one of the best things about priests, is that they were so offensive as well.
Yep. And then kind of like the last few things I have here is patch 2.4. Isle of Quel'Danas, Sunwell, mounts at 30, but the Isle of Quel'Danas, like that came in 2.4, that came with Sunwell, and the Isle of Quel'Danas is one of my favorite places, and I kind of hope it opens up earlier, like so they can do those dailies. Not too early, but earlier than the end of the game.
Well, I mean, it was such a big revamp of World PvP too, because it
was so much fun.
Obviously you're not spending that much time in Azeroth. Everyone's in Outland. Everyone has flying mounts. But then now everyone's focused on this little island. Doing their dailies and trying not to kill each other while they're doing it. Like it was just so much fun.
It's good that they had that, I think. And at the end of each iteration, like classic Naxxramas to me is so unclassic-like in so many ways. I feel like it almost belongs in TBC. And for some reason, this place just feels wrath to me. I don't know why. It's like I don't know, the whole daily quest hub. I don't think, even though there was a lot of daily quests in TBC, right? There was like the rep mounts, and there was like the Shatari Skyguard and the Netherwing and stuff like that. For some reason, this felt so wrath-like.
Yeah,
you also had to choose back then. It was like, okay, I've got this amount of daily quests. Like, where am I going to spend them? But when the Isle of Quel'Danas comes out, it's like we're all going there every day.
Yes.
Not to mention, you did it with groups, and like you'd have some awesome PvP fights. I mean, it was really fun.
Yeah. While we're talking about it, let's make fun of Bob, because maybe you guys disagree too. Hawkstrider has come out on Alliance thanks to the Isle of Quel'Danas, because you get in Magistress Terrace, you can get it, which is a sick mount, awesome looking mount.
They're giving me crap because I said that the Blood Elf mount was the stupidest looking mount in the game.
It's not as stupid as a no mount. Not as stupid as a no mount.
Just because of the sound.
Yeah. Just because of the sound.
Yeah, the sound. No, the sound of the gnome mount. We had a nice listener on Reddit tell me how to turn off the sound on the gnome mount. Thank you, brother.
Oh, the ching ching.
You actually like the aesthetics of the mount though, outside of the sound?
No, I don't like them. I don't like either of the mounts.
No, neither do I.
Does.
We have the same taste, Bob.
I don't want to ride an ostrich. I'm sorry.
No, I don't like it either. I'd much rather ride a raptor. Like a
big chicken. That's the problem. Like you guys probably want something with spikes on it, and like, oh, it's so cool. No, give me a big.
Yip was totally looking for some teammates there, and he didn't get them.
They don't have the right opinion about. No, but I mean, like it is like there's a difference between like Raptors probably don't feel that cool on Horde because it's one of the starting mounts.
I think I love the Raptors. Yeah.
But I mean, they're even cooler when you get like the ZG Raptor on Alliance. Like it's just like so extra special. That's what the white Hawkstrider is like for Alliance.
I got you.
Yeah, dude, I would definitely sport the white Hawkstrider just because of its rarity, but I wouldn't be happy about it. Give me an orange tiger. I'll take Tony the Tiger any day of the week, anytime.
I really, as a Horde player all my life, it's got to have blood and spikes and shit. And if it doesn't have that, it just doesn't. I don't know, man. Like the fact that it's a bird. I feel like I have chocobo. You know, I don't know.
It's so good.
It is very chocobo.
The reasons you hate it are the reasons I love it.
Yeah, I guess. Hey, each their own.
Yeah, see, I do love chocobos in Final Fantasy, but it's not like I have a bunch of other options. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I also don't like Kodos. So. There you go.
Kodos suck. Oh my god, Kodos suck.
Oh, I love Kodos. Come
on. Wolves and Raptors are.
Well, I mean, I would pet them, you know, like I would love them. I just, you know, don't want to ride them.
I want to say what Melderon was saying before about like, you know, go out cold enough, something like more Wrath-like, and I think the raid like Sunwell as well. So a lot of people look at TBC and say, you know, the level of like you can't really compare it with like you know Mythic raids today, but the level of raiding, especially like before a lot of the pre-nerfs, right, was, I mean, pretty substantially more difficult, especially than Classic WoW, right? And then you have something like Sunwell that comes out, which is, when you're talking about an era of raiding that I actually think that, you know, some of the TBC raids, especially the pre-nerf before they were nerfed, were more difficult than a lot of the Wrath raids, especially the 10, you know, the non hardcore, you know, versions of them and all. But then you have Sunwell, right? So I was telling Melderon this story, and I told him before, like our guild, we got our asses handed to us in Sunwell. Like it was such a level above everything else in TBC. The corrupted,
kind of like Nax.
Yeah. So I never experienced Nax. So it was like, this was like, you know, we were doing good. Like we had our difficulties in Tempest Keep, we had our difficulties in Black Temple, but we made through it all. But then we got to Sunwell. And, you know, we got to bosses like, you know, we got and then we got to like Moru, and we were just stuck on Moru for so long. Like we would just go in there for like the first couple weeks. We were just doing trash in Sunwell because trying to get the gear and the from doing the trash and stuff like that. Like Sunwell was such a level of more difficulty than I've ever experienced while, you know, when I first started playing there. And then, you know, you saw like a lot of guilds kind of similar. A lot of people don't talk about this, but a lot of guilds, similar to how it was in Nax, didn't complete Sunwell. There was a lot of guilds that didn't complete Sunwell or didn't get as far. And then, you know, some stuff was nerfed and it got a little bit easier. But in the beginning there, a lot of guilds did fall apart, or a lot of guilds were having a lot of trouble in Sunwell. And I was definitely one of those people who was bashing my head against the wall, wiping the Moru over and over and over again.
I think that just happens at the end of expansions because people are like, well, I'm just looking on to the next thing, you know?
Yeah, but I think Sunwell's difficulty was really a step above everything else in TBC as well.
Yeah, I never got to do it, but
yeah, I never got to do it either. So I'm looking. It's like just like Nax. I'm looking forward to going through the progression on time this time. Like I PvP'd mainly for the first few patches, and then like I did catch up stuff of the old raids. Like I was doing Karazhan in 2.3 and stuff. Like just kind of doing the catch up stuff. So I'm excited to go through again and just really see how difficult it is. And it sounds like Sunwell will be pretty enjoyable.
So yeah.
To end us out, because we're definitely over time, and my producer is like, "Get off the stream. We're trying to stream," and I'm like, "Sorry, Joe."
Oh man.
But I was gonna bring up flying mounts, but I think most of us here are pretty on board for flying mounts, especially the way they're implemented in TBC. Yip was telling me about how the way retail does it now is they design everything without flying mounts. They design it to not be cool. They don't have the grand floating islands up in the air. They don't have it gating you from different content. They just throw it in a year later, and it's just like
nothing is designed around flying mounts, and then flying mounts come out like a year later through like an achievement series that you can do, or like you have to get all the stuff or something.
Yeah,
and then you can,
which at that point makes the flying mounts kind of lame. But the flying mounts in TBC, I think, I'm pretty sure, I know for a fact, Defcamp and Yip and me are on the We Like Flying Mounts page. I'm pretty sure Melderon's kind of there too, right?
Oh, so you said you like flying mounts?
Yeah.
I just think they're designed into the game map. Like there's no, I don't see the argument unless you're going to redo the game world, and that will never happen, right? They're not going to redo the game. They're not going to put elevators in. They're not going to put slopes up to certain parts of the game. It was designed with flying mounts in mind. That being said, do I think they're a good thing or a bad thing? I don't like them because they make the world smaller, and I think that they limit world PvP, and those are the things I don't like. Yeah,
and I don't think they limit world PvP. I still had a bunch of world PvP with flying mounts. It was just like mostly more one-on-one PvP instead of like gank fest PvP.
Karen Mill versus South Shore kind of stuff, right? Yeah. I think that's more what I'm getting at. But you know what? That didn't happen in Classic either because they ruined that because of bringing out the honor system before.
Servers being way too big.
Yeah, I think last time we talked about flying mounts is that I enjoy the fact that a lot of the times the PvP will be resource based to the world PvP because you're not going to world PvP someone on the road because everyone's in the sky. But when it comes to like the elemental plateau, it's going to be Horde or Alliance owned, and then like there's going to be PvP over a resource that exists, or when you're getting your Nether Drake, there's only so many people who can be there doing the quest and gathering eggs. It's going to be resource based world PvP, so that part will be fun. But yeah, I mean there are reasons not to have it. But
I will
honestly,
say,
what we're talking about right now, that could lead to servers, even if they do somehow fix the faction imbalance, and I think those things will lead to another imbalance.
I think so too.
Because they can't farm.
Well, I mean, if you can't get your Nether Drake, like that's a huge. Exactly. That's the sickest mount. Like it's insane. So people will leave a server to get it somewhere easier.
So like something someone pointed out to me on Reddit about mounts that I had forgotten about the anxiety it caused me is when you're like solo leveling and you're not with a group. I forgot about having to look up. Like, I forgot about having, I'm always looking 360, like always paying attention, but I had forgot about the anxiety I have looking up and being like, is someone hovering over me? Wait until I'm low,
Right, yeah.
But yeah, I think we've talked about that a ton. The one last thing I wanted to say was everybody's talking about this whole Ret Paladin aura thing and blood. Okay, and I think people are blowing it way out of proportion because if you're only going to have one warrior DPS and one rogue DPS, then you're only going to have one Ret DPS. Is it that big of a deal?
I think the point is, I initially thought the same way, Bob, and I still do. But at the same time, why would you play an inferior form of the class? And I think that's the issue. And you're going to see a lot of people just roll Horde just because they know it's like a 10% damage increase. It's not paltry. So I don't know.
Well, and with the new batching changes, like you might not be able to do the whole what's it called? Seal twisting. So
I think that's without seal twisting, though, 10% damage increase.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's not the same as warriors, where like warriors are really, really strong. But if warriors were like less strong than they are, imagine if orcs had their plus to axes, but humans didn't have any pluses to sword. It'd be like, well, I'm not gonna. The only choice for my warrior is orc now. It's kind of just like
Fury and Blessing of Kings is pretty balanced, I'd say. I don't know. I think. Maybe orc warriors still produce more DPS. But
yeah, that's. Oh yeah, that's true. I guess I'm ignoring that. Then let's say humans only had plus swords and orcs don't have.
Right, but
and do orcs have Kel'thuzad weapons in axe form?
No, so we use Hungry and Cold too. So
that's true.
I guess what I'm trying to say is like even though orcs do more damage because of Wind Fury, it's still balanced because Paladins bring so much to the raid, and so there's this balance that exists that just kind of happens because of Paladins, honestly. But you don't have that in TBC, right? Because Paladins are available to both. So,
So, I mean, maybe they just, I do like how Kevin Jordan talked about keeping them different, like maybe the biggest thing is just, like we've talked about before, just making Warcraft logs separate Horde and Alliance, If there's going to be differences, just separate them, and then, you can be on the top, regardless of your faction, the things that make your faction not as good in certain situations as others. But you could also tweak, the Alliance version, like you could do some things, but I still think it's blown quite a bit out of proportion because
Like, one
there's
last
not
tiny
going to be
thing. Let's
more
separate
than
Warcraft.
one ret in each raid, right? You're not going to take more than one ret.
No. I mean, some guilds will, for sure, but no, you wouldn't. I mean, you shouldn't have more than one melee group, to be honest. And in that one melee group, you should have a rogue, you should have a warrior, you should have a paladin, you should have an enhancement shaman.
And it's good to have 3 paladins
yeah.
too. You want to have one holy, one prot, one ret to maximize your amount of
blessings.
buffs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But sorry, Yip, you were saying one last thing?
No, I was making fun of you. I was saying you're like, one last little thing. We should separate Horde and Alliance Warcraft. Like, moving on. That's just a very large topic.
Yeah, sorry. We've been going a long time. I'm gonna have to end the episode now, unless there's anything you guys have to say to end this out. We're gonna.
I can't wait for
close it out.
TBC.
Yeah,
TBC
me too,
rules.
dude. TBC.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be good.
All right. Well, everybody, do not forget to follow us on Twitter at WC Reloaded. You can also follow the Mash Those Buttons Network at the Mash Network. We want your WoW stories. We've got one tabled for the next time we don't have a guest. We're going to read that out, but send those stories to wcrpodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to join our Discord and interact with the hosts or any hosts on the Mash Those Buttons Network, you can do so by going to mash.gg/discord. How can you help the podcast? Well, the best way, every one of you is in a guild. Well, not every one of you, but a lot of you are in guilds, and you're in Discords with those guilds. Post us in your media channel, your streams channel. Just post it. Tell people about the episode. That's the best way to help us. Reviews help a ton, too, especially on Apple Podcasts or on warcraftradio.com/directory. All right, Yip, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Cognitive Pit or on YouTube, youtube.com/Cognitive Pit.
Awesome. And Defcamp, where can we find you and everything you do? Don't, tell us it all. You don't have to, make it short.
Yeah. You can find me. I'm going to be streaming a lot more TBC content, a lot more content on twitch.tv/Defcamp and also on our YouTube channel, Defcamp and Melderon TV. And Melderon also, if you want to talk about the videos you make there.
Yeah, it's Defcamp Melderon TV, and then we have a Twitter as well at def_mel TV, classic.live. Hopefully, we're going to have that revamp for TBC sooner rather than later. And it's essentially where you can find most of our stuff. We also sometimes record podcasts, and we also do GMA. We upload those to SoundCloud. So if you look for, and then it gets redistributed to all the other podcast providers. So if you search for Defcamp Melderon on your favorite podcast, you should be able to stuff as well.
Yep. And so you can also catch them on Cargos's channel too.
GMA,
GMA is awesome. I hope that you guys, keep that going. He's hardcore in his Burning Crusade podcast, but I hope that Good Morning Azeroth stays through Burning Crusade.
Planning on, definitely.
Yeah. So
planning on it. Yep.
All right, guys. Well, you can find me on Twitter at Blazin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB. This has been a long one, and we thank you. And goodbye.
Bye.
See you guys.